back like the seats of an 86 Delta 88 coupe on D's and Bones, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Going live in a minute, Blizzard King. This is Winter Dennis Sperling Podcast. You are rocking with the realest black men represented. Ain't no lies, cause we winning. Catching flies, ain't no feelings. Uncle D, we the villain, baby. We just left the village, baby. Now we in them villas, baby. Dennis Sperling Podcast, tuning in, we get it, baby. You can hate the player, hate the game. We love all you haters. Hate watch, hate watch. Calling lovely ladies, hands on your knees. You can thank us later. We snatching the crowns off of queens. We obliterate them. Tell the truth, shame the devil. They trying to eliminate us. You begging the sipping haters. Peeling layers off potatoes. Whoa. Southern Cadillac music like Outkast. Ain't jumping without bass. Dennis Sperling Podcast. Whoa. Southern Cadillac music like Outkast. Ain't jumping without bass. Dennis Sperling Podcast. Whoa.
We have to clean up what's going on in our house before we do anything else.
Gotta watch your back, even family that's amongst you. Got a slut ass auntie and a cool ass uncle. Kinda won't front you, but let you ride the whip around the block like you stunts. Don't do a lot of bumping. When your mama call when her ex-man jumping, all you see is feet and her ex-man stumping. That's my Uncle D, that's why the Blizzard King coming. Hot girl winter, Blizzard King summer. My we succumbing. No singing and no humming, talking we shall overcome it. Got him leaking, I'm the plumber. My nigga made Zoom look cool, yeah, you funny. What else Uncle D gotta prove more money? Overlook the tunes, if gotta shun him. Brotherhood over any woman. Cause if she play her role, then she fam, then she good. When we say brother, my sister, we mean the hood. Now homie, pop the trunk, it's been reeking just like a skunk. We can serve your knowledge, your ditch it just how you want. He just run his mouth and that bullshit we debunk. In a sunken place, he's sinking that drunk. He don't even drinking, I tell you that drunk. My nephew told me I wanna be just like my aunt. He don't even drinking, I tell you that drunk. My nephew told me I wanna be just like my aunt. Brand good, suit and tie, lawyer reppin' manhood. He don't tap dance, he overstand, he playing good. Titles don't get it, most of us getting ambushed. Mayonnaise, clam bush, buck broken, man tush. Woke up in the morning, got walk, that's on my mind. Peace can only come when you're low and order divine. Say I stay entwined, you keep a criminal mind. How you think I shine and stay from falling behind? He got open eyes and can't see it, he blind. You nice all the time, they tell you water is wine. Slaughter all your sons and leave your daughters behind. All she wanna do is flash that big behind. The music is the garbage they use to take you down. You used to rap intelligent, now you rapping like clowns. My prerogative, you thinking like Bobby Brown. Rest in peace to Whitney, Christina, that's underground. Wake up years later, you've been around. Water up to your neck and watching him as you drown. How you scoring touchdown again and you out of bounds? All the black men getting passports out of town. Homie pop the trunk, it's been reeking just like a skunk. We can serve your knowledge, your dishes just how you want. He just run his mouth and that shit we debunk. In the sunken place, he singing that good song. He don't even drink and I tell you that the drunk. My nephew told me I wanna be just like my uncle. He don't even drink and I tell you that the drunk. Nephew told me I wanna be just like my uncle. My Uncle D, 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 favorite uncle, Uncle D, my Uncle D, my Uncle D, my Uncle D, favorite uncle, my Uncle D, my Uncle D, my favorite uncle, Blizzard King, Uncle D, Uncle D, Uncle D, my favorite uncle, what? Uncle D, my favorite uncle, my Uncle D. My Uncle D, yeah, Uncle D.
What up, what up, what up? Welcome to the broadcast. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. Y'all make sure y'all hit the number 1 button if you can hear me clearly. If you can hear me clearly, hit the number 1 button, man. Shout out to all my members. Big shout out to JJ Diesel, Cowboy Traveler 79, Mr. 43TX. We got my man Mark the Freelancer in here, man. We got my guys. I know it's been a minute. Uncle D I've been on a trip around the world. I've a lot going on in my life. I just hit my 50th birthday. I've been inducted into the Hall of Fame for attorneys. Man, filed some huge lawsuits against some very, very, very suspect defendants who are going to have to pay for what they've done. Big shout out to Red Sigma. Thank you so much. Also, CJ the Enforcer. Welcome. For you guys who don't know. And Ice Princess. Thank you so much. We got an Ice Princess. I think that's probably one of the first Ice Princess. We got the Ice Lords up in here. You guys call me the Blizzard King, right? Because I'm cool with turning that cold shoulder. I'm cool with giving these people this hard truth. Somebody type cold, hard truth in the chat room. That's what I'm here for. Shout out to all of the Ice Lords, all of the Ice Princesses, everybody who's been supporting me for so long. Here's the thing. As I said before, my name is Dennis, Uncle D, Sperling, the Blizzard King. I'm a Hall of Fame attorney. I'm a father. I'm a podcaster. And I am also a man who loves God. I love my people. And at this point, I've made enough money in my life. Not that I'm going to stop making money, just so y'all know. But my main focus at this point is on legacy. And when I say legacy, the question is, what have I done in my life to create a substantial change so that the people who come after me, my people, will have a better existence than the one that I was welcomed to? Legacy. See, it's not just about how much money you make in your life. It's not about the beautiful things, the beautiful places that you've been. It's about your legacy. What impact, what lasting impact have you made? Shout out to Mr. 43TX. And I'm going to read all the chats and the super chats later, man. The super chat is open. The Cash App is open. So you guys make sure if you hear something you like, if I motivate you, if I inspire you, if I make you angry, you can beat me up with your super chats. I'll read all your super chat comments, no matter how bad you talk about me. But so that's open too. But the main thing is we're learning and we're communicating. But back to the subject at hand, legacy. Somebody type legacy in the chat room. Somebody type legacy in the chat room. What is it that you've done in this world that has made it better for the people who come after you, your people? And when I say my people, I'm talking about Black American people. Not just Black people, Black American people. What do I mean by that? Well, there's so many Black people in America who have a different historical legacy than I do, that it is necessary that we add some adjectives to that. See, you have Black people who are from Jamaica and Trinidad, and they're from places like Nigeria and Ghana and South Africa. So how do we distinguish the Black Americans who can trace their lineage back to the slave plantations and the breeding farms of the 1800s and 1900s? Well, there's a brilliant young man on the internet. His name is Tariq Nasheed. Most of you know him. If you follow this page, you absolutely must know Brother Tariq Nasheed. And whether you agree with him or not, That brother's on code. Somebody type on code in the chat room. Come on. First of all, hand clap for Brother Tariq Nasheed. Somebody type on code in the chat room. See, I maybe have spoken to the brother once, briefly, about a non-related matter, 7 or 8 years ago, I believe. And I was invited to his Foundational Black American Summit last year, and I spoke there. And I don't have to have a conversation with that brother every day to figure out that he's on code. Now, if you look at the brother's history, he's made beautiful movies and documentaries about accomplishments of Africans and African Americans and Caribbean Americans. But I think what the brother realized very early on is that, and of course, his studies of history, a very knowledgeable young brother. I love the brother. I love what he's doing with his work. He's probably the only one of his kind right now, historian, thought leader, and he creates these brilliant documentaries, and you should get them all. But he realized that our African brothers and our Caribbean brothers oftentimes, and this, of course, there's exceptions, they don't often reciprocate the Black love. They don't often reciprocate the Pan-African love. In fact, it's one way, you see? And so he quickly realized when it wasn't reciprocated, he needed to come up with a way in which we can differentiate. So the brother put foundational in front of Black American to help distinguish between Black Americans who arrived in this country after 1860 and those of us who could trace our history to a time period before 1860. In 1860, of course, is when the Civil War started. So that's what Brother Tariq Nasheed did. And I accept that term. I accept foundational Black American. That particular descriptive language in front of Black American to help distinguish between myself and the other Blacks in the Pan-African or in the diaspora. And I don't have a problem with it. You all don't have a problem distinguishing yourself from us. In fact, if there's a great accomplishment by a Nigerian man or woman, or a Jamaican man or woman, or a Trinidadian man or woman, we say, oh, look at that Black person. You'll say, oh, no, that person is Nigerian. Won't you? Tell the truth. You say, oh, no, that person is from Barbados. That's what you do, don't you? So we as foundational Black Americans should be able to do what? Describe ourselves so that there's no misunderstanding, and also be an advocate for our people. Now, that doesn't mean I don't love my African brothers and sisters. That doesn't mean I don't love my Caribbean brothers and sisters. Matter of fact, personally, I found out some 10 years ago that my father, biological father, a man who I hadn't met up until 10 years ago and who I didn't know about up until 10 years ago, and was a man from the Caribbean. Here I was thinking that my heritage was my mother's side from Mississippi and my father's side from North Carolina. And so I was raised as a foundational Black American. That's what my love is. And before any of you all judge me, some of you all don't know who your father is, do you? Somebody type, who's the daddy, in the chat room. Nevertheless, without going too deep into that, I am foundational Black American through and through, but I got love for all my people. But when it comes down to it, I have to be on the side of my people. I have to be on the side of foundational Black American people, because that's why I hang my hat. Those are the people that took care of me. Those are the people who founded the universities, the law schools and undergraduate schools that I attended, the HBCUs. Those are the people whose neighborhoods I grew up in. Those are the people whose food I ate. That's where my grandma is from. That's where my mama's from. You understand? So that's where my loyalty lies. It's very simple for me to understand. That's the side that I choose. I'm not going to sell out my people because I find out, oh, I could leave if I want to. No, that's not what's going to happen. So I'm foundational Black American. You understand? And so somebody type FBA in the chat room just so we can have a clear understanding of what I'm saying. Foundational Black American. So what is it about foundational Black Americans? We have a lot of great leaders. You see? And as I said earlier, I'm an attorney. I don't consider myself a leader. I'm just a person who is good at finding a way forward. Now, when I mentioned earlier that I got love for my folks of color, Black folks specifically overseas, and I also mentioned that that love has not often been reciprocated. We often talk about how when Brother Malcolm, in one of his 4 trips to Africa, he attempted to internationalize the struggle of African Americans or foundational Black Americans. And he sought to bring the issue to the United States because Brother Malcolm believed that the plight of African Americans should be considered a human rights issue rather than just a civil rights issue. Now, when Brother Malcolm visited Africa, he was working hard. He was working hard to try to get countries at the UN to stand up for African Americans and call out the terrible treatment that African Americans were facing back in the States. Now, at that time, there were at least 12 African countries who were part of the UN. That is Algeria, Burundi, Cameroon, the Central African Republic, Chad, Congo, Ivory Coast, Dahomey, which is now Benin, Gabon, Kenya, Libya, and Madagascar. Now, Malcolm would have loved to be able to just walk into the UN and say, hey, yeah, I'm here to help. You know, I'm here to argue on behalf of Black folks, but he couldn't do that. He needed a sponsor. And none of those nations would stand up for our people. None of those nations would act as a sponsor for Black Americans. So what does that tell you? I'm listening. What does that tell you? Tells me a lot. Tells me that they see us as different. Tells me that they don't see us as an African people, or either they do see us as an African people and they don't care. Either way, it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and Brother Malcolm never was presented with an opportunity to bring these issues to the UN. Now, some of you will say, well, and during the 1960s, African nations were newly independent and they were trying to gain their own independence and, you know, trying to figure out their position on the global stage. And their actions might have been driven by a whole range of diplomatic concerns. And they didn't have time to fool around with this mess that was going on in America between Black folks, white folks. But nevertheless, it did frustrate Brother Malcolm because he saw a lack of support from African leaders whom he felt could have been more vocal in their solidarity with the plight of African Americans. That was way back in the 1960s. That's 60 some odd years ago. And still, it does not seem like our African brothers and sisters and the leaders take our plight seriously. Now, those of you all who've been with me for a minute, you know that I like to give solutions on this channel. For years and years and years and decades even, our people have been asking for reparative justice. We have been asking for reparations, haven't we? We've been asking for reparations. Now, I know some of y'all like, I don't need the money, I'm good. You may be good. But we as a people are not good. We don't have our own institutions. We don't have our own country. We don't have our own land. We don't have our own source of food. We don't have our own source of protecting ourselves. We have nothing. We don't even have our own language and names. Institutionally speaking, we have nothing. Yeah, you as an individual, you did good in the plumbing business, and now you got that nice $550,000 house and that $82,000 car. Your fine wife and your son is doing well, and your daughter just married a handsome man and gave you some grandchildren. You're doing great. Proud of you. Applause. But as a people, we're not doing very well. We need reparations to help us establish and maintain our institutions. Help develop our culture and our people. It's a necessity. Now, when I say reparations, what do I mean? I mean gold. I mean money. I don't mean scholarships. I don't mean not paying taxes for the next 4 generations. I want money in hand. That's what I want for my people and for you all who have a problem with it. When y'all sold us, y'all got money in hand. When y'all bought us, y'all gave somebody money in hand. When y'all worked us to death, generation after generation, you were paid money in hand, and we weren't paid. We didn't get our cut. For you African brothers who are listening to me right now, for you African sisters who are listening to me right now, we share the same ancestors. But your ancestors and our ancestors decided my ancestors were to be sold and brought over to the United States for a fee. And you were paid. These same governmental leaders who didn't want to help Brother Malcolm are the descendants of the same leaders, same families who reaped the benefit in monetary forms for selling us to the European traders after they kidnapped us and brought us to the coast, the west coast of Africa. So you got money, but you don't want us to have the money that we're supposed to get, that you've taken and built and developed. Some of you all say, well, why can't we sue the white man? Maybe you can. Maybe you can sue the American government. Maybe you can sue these European countries. Maybe you can. But that's not what I'm focused on today. I want to focus on some untapped territory. I want to focus on those African nations who played a part in the slave trade. Why? Because there's not a whole lot of them. It's about a dozen of them. As a matter of fact, I can sue a dozen defendants much better than I can sue millions of defendants. You're going to sue each and every person in the United States who owned slaves. You're going to sue each and every ship captain, descendants. How are you going to figure that out? How feasibly is that going to happen? How are you going to sue an individual human being for something that his great-great-great-great-granddaddy did? Here's the cold part. Some of your black and white ancestors owned slaves. So you're going to sue yourself? Why not look at the source of the problem? All white folk were doing was patronizing a black-owned business. And at that time, the black-owned business was slavery. Africans had been selling Africans to Arabs for 1,400 years before the first white man decided to bring one over to the United States, which wasn't the United States at the time, but they had been doing it for millennia before the first white man got involved in the transatlantic slave trade. Shout out to Ivy Dreams. Hello, Alpha King. 08 loves 06. Shout out to you, sister. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to the military vets, too. Shout out to the hardworking green, the blue-collar workers, too. Shout out to all y'all. So how do we, but we're going to get back to this subject. See, here's what I've done. I've done enough research to realize that Africans were not innocent victims who thought they were selling us into a powder puff form of slavery. They knew exactly what they were doing. They participated in it. Matter of fact, when the European nations outlawed the transatlantic slave trade, those African nations went rogue. They refused to give it up. And there needs to be some redress. And we need to talk about it, even if you're uncomfortable with it. Everybody must pay their part. We haven't even begun to talk about what the African nations did. I understand why. Because you romanticize Africa. Our ancestors, I'm talking about your Frederick Douglasses, Booker T. Washingtons. They knew what the Africans did. When you look at the book called about the Clotilda incident, which we'll talk about, and when it was documented, Kuja Lewis, they knew what the Africans did. But they didn't want to touch it. Because at that time in the 1920s, we had a whole Back to Africa movement going. And if African Americans learned that Africans actually played a pivotal, crucial, absolutely necessary part in their enslavement and sale to the Europeans, it might have turned us off to Africa. And that was at the burgeoning stages of I'm black and I'm proud. So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and get into it. And we're going to talk about it. And what we're going to talk about today is apology not accepted. Africa forced to pay Black Americans reparations. And we're going to do this by talking about some proposed legislation that I've created myself. Using all my powers and all my skills and all my knowledge as an attorney, I put this together and I'm going to explain why each and every clause is constitutional. So you guys hang in there. Shout out to everybody who contributed to the Super Chat Cash App. I'm going to read them when we come back. But in the meantime, y'all enjoy this. I shall return.
Let's Burning Podcast. Click your mouse pad. Yeah, we out back. Hit the like, hit subscribe. Don't just hate watch, cause we outside. Let them hate watch. Go and play pop. We just lay by. See, don't play that. We on playback. We on playback. We go way back. Black men, yeah, we earn something. Tune in, gotta learn something. Uncle D podcast bumping. Likes up, hit the sub button. Black men, yeah, we earn something. Tune in, gotta learn something. Uncle D podcast bumping. Likes up, hit the sub button. This is Dennis Burden Podcast. Don't just hate, watch. Hit subscribe and let them know we outside. Don't hold hate, donate. Super chat, cash app. Put something in the collection plate. Church.
I want y'all to make sure y'all hit the number 1 button. And we're going to kind of get back to what we like to do over here, man. I need y'all to check in at a certain point when it's time to check in. I need to checking in to start happening again. We got to go ahead and get this algorithm pumping. All right, welcome back to the broadcast. Big shout out to Johnny Vegas. He says, I appreciate all your work. Cheers. Thank you so much, Red Sigma. Legacy, that's right. I am Waffles. Thanks for tackling this tough conversation. Hey, man, that's what the Blizzard King is here for. Let it be known that the Blizzard King didn't back down from these tough conversations. I wouldn't be who I am if I did. My man, Mr. 43TX says, quit my job on Friday. I am now self-employed. Shout out to you, man, 43TX LLC. That's what I'm talking about, man. Y'all, thank you so much for giving me those super chats. I don't think I've received anything on the Cash App yet. The Cash App is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So y'all make sure y'all give a shout out to me on the Cash. This is a tough topic. And if you look at the internet and you look at some of the comments to my reparations broadcast, I mean, these people are angry. You know, they are angry. These Pan-Africans and other folks, they're angry because it upsets their status quo. See, they want to get my people money. You understand? I want to get my people reparations. They want to get reparations. They just want to fight with somebody about reparations. No, I want to get reparations for my people so that we can become whole, so that we can establish these institutions before it's too late. They just want to fight with white folks. They want to fight with European based insurance companies and corporations that took over shipping companies. I want to get straight into the point and put money in my people's pocket. That's what I want to do. You see the difference between me and them? I'm not interested in the emotional arguments. I want to get the results for my people because my people need it now. We don't have another 100 years to wait. You understand that? Somebody typed that in the chat room. We don't have another 100 years. And you so-called pro-blacks and Pan-Africanists and, you know, you and your chakras and your incense burning, you've had 100 years to deal with this conversation. I've been working on it for 3. And based on my nearly 25 years of legal experience and litigation, this is the best form of action. This is the best form of action we have. Yes, I've analyzed cases. I've analyzed different things related to potentially bringing lawsuits. But I think the quickest, most effective way is to get ourselves what I call the foundational Black American Slave Trade Reparations Act it passed by Congress. That's what I need. We need a federal law in place. Now, what I'm going to talk and what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you some, we're going to go over it. We're going to go over it in detail and we're going to talk about what we said. Okay. Now, again, the foundational Black American Slave Trade Reparations Act. All right. Basically, this is an act that is designed to address and redress historical injustices, all right, that are identified in this act. Congress is going to do a little research. This is going to be in the findings section. And it's going to acknowledge the continued illegal importation. Somebody type illegal importation. Somebody type illegal importation of enslaved Africans to the U.S. post 1808. Somebody type 1808. That's a very important date. Somebody type 1808. That's right. One of my members said, yeah, this is a serious topic. Any trolling, you getting removed from the channel. Yeah, we talking serious here. I don't think that this generation is ready for this conversation. I don't think you all are like me. You see, growing up in South Central Los Angeles, and the brother Charleston White said this himself, it's a different mentality. That's why you have so many black men who are willing to unalive other black men in that California, Southern California, LA area. And the reason is because we don't mind separating ourselves from our emotions and our blackness and representing our side. It's just a mentality that we have. That's why California, LA, especially Oakland, that's always the places where things popped off. Whether it be gangster rap, whether it be the Black Panther Party for self-defense, it's just a different mentality. So it makes sense that a black lawyer who was born and raised in South Central LA, who has that mentality, is willing to say, well, you know, we need to get it from the ones, we need to go ahead and get it from these Africans. Brother, sister, be damned. I want my check. Somebody type cut the check in the chat room. You understand? If it's going to make me whole, cool. We could be friends later, but we need to get this paper. You see? That's a mentality. So, nevertheless, I'm going to define and shout out to Tony. Thank you so much for the cash out. Shout out to my man, Urban Eagle, Solo Dolo, original man. Educate the masses, Mr. Sperling, hold them accountable. Yeah, we're going to be here for a minute, man. I want to get this all in and I want to get this done. I've been contemplating this for a couple of weeks now, so I want to get this out the way. We're going to define what foundational Black American is. So shout out to brother Tariq Nasheed. Your terminology, if I have my way, is going to be codified in the legal treatises and the federal code, because I think it's a very good description. It's not too different from what we already consider ourselves as Black American, and it's perfect. As opposed to changing it again, we went from colored to Negro to all these different things. Well, foundational Black American is perfect. You see, it's not too far off. We're going to define what an African sovereign is. And of course, I want you to understand something, okay? When I say 1808, that was the year that the transatlantic slave trade became illegal under American law, okay? And so this will include the slave ships Clotilda and Wanderer. Basically, any African brought to America after 1808, that would be considered the illegal importation of slaves, or illegal import, that was unlawful. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's a key point. Now, jurisdiction and venue, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why we're going to use this. We're going to be able to sue African nations in our country because irrespective of the sovereign immunity, and we're going to talk about successor state liability. We're going to talk about the statute of limitations, remedies, and we're going to talk about how this is going to be implemented. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and let y'all see my proposed legislation. All right. Shout out to my man, International Quiet Storm. He said, happy belated birthday, Uncle D. Thank you for covering this topic. Support Black male media. Yeah, man, we come a long way, haven't we? You come a long way, man. So let's go ahead and pull this up real quick and y'all just read along. This is the proposed legislation right here, okay? And of course, the draft title, I'll make it a little bigger. if I need to. It's a little bigger for everybody to check out. All right, y'all, can y'all see that? You could take this language and roll. And the reason I'm putting it up here and I'm letting you see my notes is because I want this to be something that you can have. You know, you can literally screenshot this and you can fight me on it. Okay. But let's read it. The Foundational Black American Slave Trade Reparations Act of 2024. The short title, this is pretty much standard language. If you for you guys who don't know how a law becomes a law, first of all, you get a House of Representatives member to introduce. Sometimes it could be introduced as the Senate. Either way, the House then ratifies it in a small subcommittee. The total body of the House then approves it. Then it's shipped over to the Senate. The Senate comes up with their version of the bill. And then the two houses meet, and then they come up with a joint version of the bill and it's sent to the president. And once the president signs it, it becomes law. It becomes American law. All right. It's just that simple. You see, we can get this done right now. You see, I truly believe that a Donald Trump type president will sign something like this. I truly believe he will. Because when you realize what it's doing, it's like, okay, so we can give these black people reparations. And they're gonna go get it from Africans, hold Africa. Oh wow, yeah, we'll sign that, right? So we get to kill, we get to give them what they want. We get the black folks on our side, and we give them reparations without having to pilfer the coffers of the United States. And I just want y'all to think about something. Let's say we get it. Let's say some president somewhere in America in the future decides to give black folks $1 trillion for reparations. Where do y'all think that money is coming from? It's going to come straight out of the tax money that we as black Americans pay. Why not get it from another source? Again, look, I got love for Africans. I got love for all of you, but my God, y'all haven't treated us very well. Brother Malcolm went over there and y'all didn't treat it. I'm just saying, let's talk about it, okay? Now again, and some of y'all are saying this in the comment section. You can, my man said, you make people who have no understanding of logic and reasonable discussion uncomfortable. Kevin said it best. When you are correct and are winning the argument, people will resort to insults as a final stand against you. Yeah, that's true. You know, and I'm just saying, some of you all are saying, well, you know, somebody must have thought of this. No, they haven't. It's been such an uncomfortable conversation. Thank you so much, Maurice Harris. This has been such an uncomfortable conversation. It takes somebody like the Blizzard King, who does not mind speaking that cold truth, and who has an overwhelming love for his foundational black American people and their legacy and his legacy, that he doesn't mind speaking the truth. And so that's where we are. You see? Some of you all have read some of my broadcasts. You see how our brothers, they told us to return home. We apologize. And then when our brothers go to Africa and our sisters go to Africa, they don't treat us very well, do they? They like the rich ones of us to come over there and give them money. They like the actors and entertainers to come over there and give us money, but they don't treat us well. And we have to just accept that reality. We have to just accept that reality that this is where we're going to be. And so we might as well make the best of it. Africa gives money to everybody else in the world. Why not give it to Africa? The Chinese get African money, the Russians, the Indians, the Arabs, everybody. Why not foundational black Americans? So either way, let's go ahead and proceed. So the draft is here. All right. The draft title is such. Again, shout out to Brother Tariq Nasheed. He's the one that came up with this term foundational, which I think is perfect because it makes sense. It distinguishes black Americans who can trace their roots back to 1860 and slavery here in the United States, as opposed to black Americans who come here from other countries. You see? So the Foundational Black American Slave Trade Reparations Act, This act may be cited as the foundational African American slave trade reparations. And of course, this is interchangeable. You can always take that out. What are the findings? And y'all pay attention to this. This is important. Every time legislation is proposed, Congress investigates. They do some research, okay? You know, they start an investigation committee, right? And they come up with some findings. And this is what the findings are, right? So we've bypassed that part already. So what are the findings? Congress, and we talk about Congress, we talk about the United States Congress, finds that despite the prohibition of the transatlantic slave trade, by the act prohibiting the importation of slaves of 1807, which took effect in 1808, the illegal importation of enslaved Africans directly from Africa to the United States continued, including notable incidents involving the slave ships Clotilda and Wanderer. Now, do I need to educate y'all on the Clotilda? Do you guys know what the Clotilda is? Because I've talked about this. This is not the first time I've discussed the Clotilda, right? There's a really good special on Netflix. You can go to Wikipedia, and just to state quickly, the Clotilda was the last known U.S. ship to bring captives from Africa to the United States, and it arrived in Alabama. It arrived in Alabama with about 110 African men in 1860. By that time, slavery had been outlawed for over 50 years, international slavery, and they did it anyway. So this was clearly an illegal act. Some of you all know about the Clotilda. Somebody type Clotilda in the chat room. Some of you all know about Clotilda. Type Clotilda in the chat room. The Wanderer was another one of these slave ships. So picture this, as my friends in New Orleans used to say, picture this. Slavery ended over 50 years ago, and you still got folk going to Africa and bringing African slaves here. How could they do that? How could they do that? They would pull up their ship. They'd pull up their ship. They'd upload a whole bunch of slaves, black folk who've been captured, and sail back. How was this even possible? It was possible because the kings and the nations of Africa were still actively participating in slavery. They didn't want to give up the slave trade. So as we talk about the Clotilda, this is a current, ongoing event that was happening even after slavery was outlawed. Now, the Wanderer, this was a ship that brought an illegal cargo of enslaved people from Africa to the United States. And it landed in Jekyll Island, Georgia. Shout out to all my people from Georgia. And it landed in November 28th, 1858. So this is 2 years before the Clotilda. This was the last ship known to bring Africans from Africa to Georgia. You see? So these are two incidents that occurred well after the international slave trade became illegal. That's what this is addressing. Let's be clear. That's when I say illegal slave trade, that's what we're addressing. Now, some of you all are saying, well, why don't you make it broader and address all of the Africans who were brought from Africa to the United States? And I'm telling you that no, we're going to narrow this legislation so that it is feasibly passable, so we can start somewhere. Somebody type start somewhere in the chat room. Somebody type start somewhere in the chat room. You are the new owner of an NFL team that has been losing for half a decade. Yes, you would love to get the best players you can and fill all your positions with them. But you got salary caps. You got a budget. You got talent restraints. So what you do is you start somewhere. Maybe you say we're going to build the defense up first. Let's get us some defensive ends. Let's get some linebackers. Let's get some cornerbacks. Let's put some veterans out there who can lead the team. You got to get a toehold in. Right now, reparations doesn't even have a toehold. There's no considerable body of litigation addressing reparations. So let's start with something that has been clearly illegal, where we have people who have been doing something that's illegal, and we can make some legislation about it. It's already going to be a hard fight. Let's not make it harder by making it too broad. Are y'all with me? We're talking about strategy right now. We're talking about being intelligent. Remember, they had 100 years to do it. I've been working on it 3. And this already makes more sense. We are going to help, or Congress has found what? That Africans were brought to this country illegally after 1808. Specifically 2 incidents, the Clotilda and the Wanderer. Let's start with that. Does that make sense? That's something we can point to. We know where their descendants are. Let me know if that makes sense to you. Where my logical people at? Huh? Where are my logical people at? Huh? Where my logical people at? Does it make sense? Is this intelligent? Huh? Something we know the actual victim. Let's get a foothold in this thing before we try to climb this mountain. We got to get a foothold in it. Now, some of you all are saying, well, those ships sometimes stop for refueling in Jamaica and other Caribbean islands. Okay, these voyages sometimes involve transient stops for supplies in other locations without substantially engaging in any further slave trade activities, resulting in the forced and unlawful transportation of Africans directly to the United States. So for all of you saying, well, sometimes they stopped in Africa, in the Bermuda, in Jamaica, to pick up supplies. Okay, we get that. But substantially speaking, or for the most part, even though they didn't come directly from Benin to Alabama or Congo to Georgia, we know that what was going on. So we'll use the reasonableness standard. That's what this word substantially means. Nevertheless, findings are this trade has left a lasting impact on their descendants known as foundational Black Americans. Okay? Now, what's the purpose of this act? Now, I want y'all to be very thoughtful in understanding this. This act is designed to enable foundational Black Americans, specifically those who are direct descendants, listen, of Africans forcibly transported to the United States after the federal prohibition trade. In 1808, we had 400,000 Africans in the United States. By 1860, there were 4 million Africans in the United States. What does that tell you? What happened in that 52-year time period? Huh? We already know that the slave trade didn't end. They were bringing slaves over to the United States illegally, right? We also know about the breeding farms. So what I'm telling you, family, is that more likely than not, you have an African descendant who was brought to this country forcibly after the prohibition against the international slave trade went into place. So this may very well include you. You just have to do the research. If we went from 400,000 Africans to 4 million Africans, and they were still bringing Africans over to this country and intermixing them and breeding, that means you probably have a relative that would cause for you to fall into this category of people for the purpose of which this act seeks reparations therefore. Think about that. So be intelligent. Don't count yourself out before you see if you can count yourself in. Let's be intelligent. Somebody type intelligent in the chat room. Now, of course, we're going to say this includes the descendants of the Clotilda and the Wanderer incidents. And what does it allow them to do? To seek reparations from modern African nations that are successors to those historical entities that participated in the slave trade. Oh, yeah. Let's read that again. The purpose of this act is to allow foundational Black Americans whose direct descendants of Africans were forcibly transported to the United States after 1808 to seek reparations from modern African nations that are successors to the historical entities that participated in the slave trade. Now, what do I mean? Because any legislation needs a definition. For the purposes of this legal document or this proposed legislation, let me say that again, for the purposes of this document, an individual, a foundational Black American, is an individual who is a direct descendant of an African person enslaved or transported directly from Africa to the United States post 1808. Shout out to my man CJ the Enforcer. Thank you so much for the birthday, man. I appreciate that 100 bone. Good looking out. Thank you so much, brother. I'm gonna get all y'all again in a minute. I'm gonna shout out to all y'all. But let's this definition. So what does this exclude? This excludes a lot of folks who gonna come over here and say, well, I want to get in the reparations line. My people were enslaved. I'm Irish. Well, my people were discriminated against. I'm Mexican. They had up on those signs, no Mexicans, no dogs, no Negroes. You know, they're going to have Africans coming over. Well, my family got here in 1980. We were discriminated against. No. All right. This act is for foundational Black Americans. And these are individuals who is a direct descendant of an African enslaved person transported directly from the United States after 1808, including those ancestors who were victims of the Clotilda and the Wanderer. You exclude all these people who want to come in and be $5 Indians. That term $5 Indian becomes because when the government start passing out free money to Indians, there's a lot of people who paid $5 to have their ethnicity changed on their official documents. And that's why they call them $5 Indians. So we don't want any $5 FBA either. You see, so this act already defines who this is for. Don't y'all wish affirmative action had a better definition than it has right now? We might have actually benefited from it. Now, what is an African sovereign? An An African sovereign, this refers to any current nation that is a successor to historical empires, kingdoms, or entities that actively participated in the transatlantic slave trade. Oh, damn. See that? See that? Well, how can you do that? Because this is sound, and we're going to talk about the legal precedent that says that you can do this. It's called successor liability. Somebody type successor liability in the chat room. Somebody type successor liability in the chat room. Okay? Now, we're going to skip down to the next section. Do we have any questions? Are there any questions about what we read so far? I'm going to go into detail. We just getting started. I know we're an hour in, but this is going to be one of them lectures, man. When I was back in college at Grambling, man, we'd have these people come, these minds, these brilliant black folks, they come and teach us like after hours. They come teach for 3 or 4 hours, man. You know, it'd be a good, those are some of the most brilliant intellectual conversations I'd ever had. Not inside the class, but when they came, the scholars would come to Grambling from all across America. And so this is going to be one of those lectures. So we're going to be here for a minute. Y'all okay? Let me know if you're okay. Feel free to chop this up and cut this up and talk about it and be mad about it as long as you're talking about it. I'm cool. Now, the establishment of jurisdiction. The federal jurisdiction. The U.S. Federal District Court shall have exclusive jurisdiction over any civil action brought by a foundational Black American against an African sovereign for acts related to the illegal transatlantic slave trade. Now, when did the transatlantic slave trade become illegal? Who remembers that year? What year was it? Huh? What year was it? What year did it become illegal? Huh? Come on, it's a test. This is a test, y'all. Where my smart people at? This is a test where y'all listening. There's some terminology that you got to get. That's right. 1808. Successor liability. Somebody type foundational Black American. Okay? Somebody type Clotilda. Somebody type the Wanderer. Y'all listening? Don't get bored. But what this basically is saying is that if you want to sue, if you find out that you're a direct descendant of one of these Africans who were brought to this country, and you want to sue one of the successors of these nations for participating, for their participation in the slave trade. Here we go. Got my jelly jar. Come over here, young man. Let me talk to you for a minute. Look at my boy. Look at my boy right here. This is my boy Roman. Say hi to everybody. Hello. Daddy is talking to the people about reparations. You know anything about reparations at all? No. Not really. I know. That's all right, baby. That's my boy right there. He's, how old are you, 14? Mm-hmm. Be 15 this year. Straight A student. What you want to be when you grow up? Neurosurgeon. He wants to be a neurosurgeon. My boy wants to be a straight A student. Rarely ever gets a B. He wants to be a neurosurgeon. You see what I mean? They also call him the Crimson Sun. But he's a brilliant young man. I know y'all hear me over here yelling at the internet. I appreciate you tolerating me. But this is my living legacy. You see? My living legacy. And I'm talking to him about your mark that you leave on the world. You know? Yeah. And I think that's important. And you want to leave a good umbrella for your children to dwell under. You don't want to be a man who is immoral, who is just basically lived in this world and forgotten without memory. You came to watch Daddy get inducted into the Hall of Fame, huh? Mm-hmm. What they said some harsh stuff about Daddy's life when I was young. Huh? Yeah, Daddy had a hard time growing up. What stood out for you? Like how you didn't have a dad in your life. What else?
Like how you're from the ghetto.
Yeah, I'm from the ghetto. That's what they called it. Yeah, what else?
Like how you had to make it from like nothing to something.
Did you hear how they say I worked 2 jobs when I was in law school? I worked 2 jobs in law school. Did you hear when I was in undergrad at Grambling, I did a construction job? Did you hear that part?
Yeah.
I had a construction job at Grambling. I worked hard. I outworked everybody in the room. Part of why I'm successful is because I outwork everybody. And along with outworking comes with planning and being intelligent. That's what I'm trying to teach. Does Daddy talk a lot when I'm talking to you? I'll be talking a lot. Huh? Sometimes I tell, do I do it? But tell me, what is it that I always, when I give you advice, what is it that I always do?
You give it to for the benefit of us.
You hear what that boy said? Tell him again.
You give us advice that benefits us.
I give my sons advice that benefits them, not me. And that's the same thing I'm doing to them. You know, fighting with these people, these Africans is mad at me now. I got African friends. They mad at me. Because I'm telling them, go get that money from them Africans. What are you saying? Wow, you saying, hey, why are you saying go come and sue us? We don't have any money. Why are you sue the white man? Don't sue us. They mad at me. But I'm doing it because it benefits my people. I tell them to do stuff that benefits them. I don't want no slaves. I don't want no slaves out of my children. I want them to go and see what the world has to offer. Even if it is against my interest, I give my sons advice that benefits them. Even my woman, I give her advice that don't benefit me. Helping her get rich and being a lawyer and stuff like that. She could leave me any day, Roman. I'll be back to eating tuna sandwiches every day. But see, that's not what's important to me. My own well-being is not important. I want to be known as someone who helped and who gave. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's part of my legacy. Anyway, young brother, go ahead and get up out of here, baby. Get up out of here. Don't be hugging on me. I'm hard. I'm tough. I can't have you hugging on me because people will think Uncle D is getting soft. Now, back to the conversation. All right. So we left off with federal jurisdiction. Shout out to the Crimson Sun, man. Y'all make sure you take your kids to church too. That's another important thing. I'm gonna have another Father's Day style function. Well, Father's conversation where I talk to you fellas, and I think I'm going to talk to you about the importance of introducing your children to worship and to the Most High, and whatever avenue you choose to get there by, you know, whether you be Christian, Muslim, whatever you are, okay, you Hebrew, Israelite, you need to be consistent with it and make sure they have a healthy understanding of it. But we'll talk about that another night. Shout out to y'all. Let's get back to the subject matter. Matter of fact, we'll take a quick little break and we're gonna jump back in and we're gonna talk. We'll finish up with venue and such, and we're gonna move on. We got a lot of work to do, man. We got a lot of work. Y'all hang in there. We'll be right back. Y'all hit the #1 button, and I shall return.
Going live in a minute, Blizzard King. This is Winter Dennis Sperling podcast. You are rocking with the realest black men represented. Ain't no lies, cause we winning. Catching flies, ain't no feelings. Uncle D, we the villain, baby. We just left the village, baby. Now we in them villas, baby. Dennis Sperling podcast, tuning in, we get it, baby. You can hate the player, hate the game. We love all you haters. Hate watch. Calling lovely ladies, hands on your knees. You can thank us later. We snatching the crowns off of queens. We obliterate them. Tell the truth, shame the devil. They trying to eliminate us. You begging the sipping haters, peeling layers off potatoes. Whoa, Southern Cadillac music like Outkast. Ain't jumping without bass. Dennis Sperling podcast. Whoa, Southern Cadillac music like Outkast. Ain't jumping without bass. Dennis Sperling podcast. Whoa.
My man, CJ the Enforcer, happy belated birthday from Riverside. That's what's up, my California homeboy. Big shout out to you. Shout out to J-Row49. Happy birthday, Uncle D. Man, thank you so much for all these well wishes, man. Big shout out to y'all, man. I try not to make a big deal out of my birthday, man. Oftentimes on my birthday, I give to other people, man. I just want to, I just want to do what I'm supposed to do here while I'm here. But thank you guys so much for acknowledging my birthday. That's pretty cool. It's nice to know that I've had an impact on so many people, and I appreciate y'all. I truly do. But let's get back to this work. So we are talking about a proposed legislation to help Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, get reparations from a guilty party, i.e. those African countries who participated in the slave trade actively after 1808 when it became illegal. We defined what it is. We defined African sovereign. We talked about successor liability. We talked about what a foundational Black American is. We spoke briefly about the Clotilda and the Wanderer incidents. These were incidents where African slave ships were brought directly from Africa to the United States. The Clotilda went to Alabama. The Wanderer went to Georgia. And so this is what we're talking about. Okay, now we briefly spoke about the establishment of jurisdiction, and we basically said jurisdiction is going to be solely in federal court. So if you are a descendant of one of these foundational Black Americans who are one of these Africans who were forcibly brought or transported to the United States after 1808, you would file suit in federal court against that African sovereign for their actions. Where is venue proper? Well, that is which federal court? Is it D.C., Alabama, Oklahoma? Well, the locations here, and this is already defined in the statute, so it makes it nice and convenient. The location of plaintiffs, that is going to be the district court where the majority of the plaintiffs reside to facilitate access and to minimize logistical burden of them. So let's take the Clotilda, for instance. And y'all hit the number 1 button, man. Get your numbers up. Let's get these numbers up. Hit that like button. You know, y'all not going to cheat Uncle D, man. I appreciate the money. Y'all keep doing that, but we're going to get these likes up. Understand me? And let's get these subscriptions up too. You understand what I'm talking about? Y'all go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Don't cheat me. And I'm doing all this thoughtful work. But the district where the majority of the plaintiffs reside to facilitate access and minimize logistical burden. So let's look at Mobile, Alabama. All right. Mobile, Alabama is where the Clotilda landed. It's where a lot of the descendants of the Clotilda still are. And so that would fall in the U.S. District Court in Mobile, Alabama is on St. Joseph Street. And I'm trying to figure out what district court that would be called. That would be I'm assuming maybe the Southern District. Let me see. I'm checking. Hold on a minute. Let me see. That would be the Southern District of Alabama. Okay, so a lot of the federal courts are divided up by the region of the state where they're in. Like you got the Northern District of Illinois. That's where Chicago is. You got Southern District of Texas. That's where Houston is. You got the Southern District of New York. That's where Manhattan is. You understand me? So so it'd be so you would file there. You could also file defendant's presence, the district where the defendant African sovereign maintains a diplomatic consular or any official presence or consulate. So let's see, these folks from Africa came from Benin when they were brought from Africa to Alabama, and specifically the country of Benin. So let's see where it is. Okay, the Benin consulate is in Washington, D.C. So you could sue on behalf of those Clotilda victims. You could sue in the Alabama district or the Southern District of Alabama. You could also sue in the United States District Court in Washington. Okay. Where else? Historical, the district that has significant historical connections to the transatlantic slave trade events or specific slave trade incidents mentioned in all mentioned in the claim, provided that this connection is material to the cause of action. So this is just like a catch-all, okay? I'm assuming places like New Orleans, where they had a big slave port there, these sort of places like South Carolina, those will be, this is just more of a catch. These are very specific, and that's more like a catch-all, okay? So we kind of get that. Now, here's the thing. Some of you are saying, well, how can you sue a foreign country in the United States? Isn't that a question? Right? How do you sue a foreign country in the United States? How do you do that? And I'm gonna dig into that a little bit more. But there's a statute on the books that allows the victims of 9/11 to sue the country of Saudi Arabia. So it's been done before. Now, what's the reason why? Well, normally we give countries their sovereign immunity. However, if there's a human rights violation, sovereign immunity shall not apply to cases involving allegations of participation in the transatlantic slave trade by Africans or their predecessor entities, including specific cases such as the Clotilda and the Wanderer incidents. I can think of no other human rights violation worse than enslaving a people and enslaving them and the generations that taking them to another land against their will and keeping them there for generations. So yeah, Benin, Ghana, Nigeria, Congo, Sierra Leone, and their predecessors. I get it. I get why you wouldn't like it. I understand why you don't think it's fair that your country gets sued in the United States and then we have a right to then what? Get a judgment and take all of your assets, whether they be in the United States or London or Australia, or all these other Western countries that work together just like your baby mama. You run off to London and your baby mama can still take that American judgment and have it recognized in London. All you rich dudes. Yeah. Most Africans store their wealth in Western countries anyway. They get their resources processed in wealthy countries, be it oil, minerals. That might be yours and you might be due a check. But if we get a judgment against you, guess what? We can take that. That's how the legal system works. But nevertheless, we're kind of skipping ahead. Yeah, you don't get sovereign immunity when you commit human rights violations. And I can think nothing more atrocious and more violative of the human rights than enslaving someone for generations. Now, here is a big one, okay? This seems to be a sticking point. I want y'all to, somebody type successor liability. Somebody type successor state liability in the chat room. Somebody type successor liability in the chat room. This bothers a lot of y'all. This act recognizes African nations are liable for the actions of their predecessor states concerning their involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. What that means is, right now you are the nation of Nigeria. But before, you were a nation run by a king and a queen, or whatever. Before you, right now you're Benin. Before that, you were Dahomey, and you had a king. Your nation of Benin is responsible for what that king did, and that is well-founded international law. And I got some citations for you. Now, the other thing is, well, how can you sue these people for something that happened that long ago? Because we can. Because it's American law and it's sound. That's the other thing we're going to dig in the second half of this. Any claim under this act may be brought within 50 years of the enactment of this act, recognizing the enduring impact of the historical injustices addressed. What does that mean? What that means is if we're able to get this enacted, then you have 50 years, brothers. You have sisters, you have 50 years to do the research and figure out whether or not your ancestors are descended from a black person, an African, who was brought here illegally after 1808. See what I'm saying? See? Right? What you think about that? Now, I don't want y'all to delete any of these comments. I want to leave these comments up like, low value, man, these African nations are colonies and they're gaining their independence. How are they success? I got you, baby. I got you. I'm going to deal with that too. See, a lot of you all don't actually have an understanding of history. See, a lot of you all are just, making stuff up as you go along, but we're going to deal with that. We're going to deal with it. We're going to be here. So that's pretty clear and to the point. Okay. Now, what do you get? What's the remedy? How do you make these people whole? What restorative justice are we looking at? Plaintiffs may seek compensatory damages for economic and non-economic harm suffered. What are you? Well, your loss of freedom, the land that you were taken off of, you had a right to use it even if you didn't own it. Your family, you separate. How do you quantify that? Right? And what about punitive damages? Right? So this is money we talk. Somebody type money in the chat room. However you calculate it, cool. We got economists that can calculate that. Punitive damages. Where applicable, punitive damages may be rewarded in cases of egregious conduct to deter similar future actions. This means that when we do the research and we determine that countries like Dahomey, which is now Benin, literally fought against their neighbors just so they could go ahead and enslave them and sell them to white folk who were waiting on the shore. That's what that means. That is pretty darn egregious, isn't it? And they need to, and so you got a punitive damage claim in there for that. You understand? Restorative justice, of course, may also order measures that contribute to the restoration and rehabilitation of affected communities, including a public apology and educational program. That's all good. That's all good. We can buy that on our own. But this is what I'm talking about. I'm not going to be one of these reparations advocates who don't think, I'm not here to give you a scholarship. I want you to get your money. You understand me? You can do a lot. I feel like you grown people can do a lot more with your money than you don't need anybody else. You'll be fine with your own money. Praise God. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Now, this stuff is just more fluff and fluff. But the most important thing is that the act shall take effect immediately upon passage. All right. Now, let's go ahead and start digging into this. Are y'all with me? Y'all still with me? Hit the number 1 button if you're with me. All right. We're going to break this down into baby little bites. All right. Now, what is the reason and purpose of this? Okay. It's simple. And I'm going to go over it again. We went over it. We're going to go over it again. You understand? Potential plaintiffs. Who are these people that can sue? Can Nigerians who just got here in 1997 sue? No. Can people from Jamaica sue? No. They can't sue. Who are the potential plaintiffs? The illegal importation of enslaved Africans directly from Africa to the United States continued, including notable incidents, including the slave ships, Clotilda, and the Wanderer. We spoke about that, didn't we? The importation of enslaved Africans after this law outlawing the slave trade went into place. And it continued to happen. That's what made it illegal. There are 2 incidents that we can point at specifically, right? The Clotilda, where Africans were brought from Benin and at the behest, 110 Africans were brought from the kingdom of Dahomey, which is now Benin, to Mobile, Alabama in 1860. This journey was financed by a man named Timothy Mayer, who's a wealthy businessman. And he went through it. They were brought over here by a man named William Foster in a ship called the Clotilda. Okay, here's another one, the Wanderer. This was a little earlier than the Clotilda. This is another illegal slave ship. It was actually a luxury yacht that was converted to a slave ship, and it brought approximately 400 African slaves to Jekyll Island, Georgia in 1858. Okay? And this is something that had been happening since slavery, the transatlantic slave trade became illegal. When did it become illegal? Here's the question. What's the important year? When did the United States outlaw the transatlantic slave trade? 1808. So any Africans brought to this country after that date was done illegally. If you have an ancestor, then that means what? Who was one of those people, then you're a potential plaintiff. In 1808, we had 400,000 slaves, Africans, in the United States. By 1860, we had 4 million. So what does that tell you? Between the breeding farms and the illegal importation of African slaves, look at that. It's there. Now, who are the potential defendants? Pay attention. Pay attention. African nations identified by their contemporary names that participated in the transatlantic slave trade and later experienced colonial rule. See, a lot of y'all say, well, you try to shift, you love Africa. I know. Somebody type, we love Africa in the chat room. Somebody type that in the chat room. We love Africa. I know. So first of all, you tried to say they didn't know any better. Our Africans didn't know they were selling y'all into real slavery. They thought they were selling you into cotton candy slavery. They didn't think it was going to be that bad. Slaves had rights in Africa, right? That's what y'all told me. Y'all romanticized Africa so much you made every reason why the Africans couldn't never be wrong. And then when all that failed, you said, well, the Africans was colonized. It's not their fault. It was under colony. The white man made them do it. It wasn't that African king wanted a barrel of rum and some pots and pans. And the white man's go, oh no, the white man made him do it. He didn't know no better. It's a damn lie. You didn't think they knew what rich was? That's what rich started. Huh? So let's go ahead and dispel some of these myths. These are the primary defendants in the transatlantic slave trade. Nigeria, number one on the list. The coastal regions like Calabar and the Niger Delta were centers for the slave trade. It became a British protectorate in 1861. What? Huh? It became a British protectorate in 1861 and transitioned to a colony shortly thereafter. Hold on a minute. Well, what are you saying? It gained its independence in October 1st, 1860. Now, when did slavery start? Think about that. Y'all say that these people in Nigeria, well, this area, this Niger Delta area, they weren't responsible for the slave trade because they were, at the time, a colony of Great Britain. Now, 1861 is after the Clotilda, and it's also after the Wanderer. So let me get this straight. What you telling me is Great Britain, who had already outlawed slavery, came and colonized Nigeria, and that's when slavery ended in Nigeria? So the white man had to come in and make black folks stop selling black folks? Nevertheless, the illegal slave trade that they had been conducting since it became illegal in 1808 went on for 50 years under the control and rule of those Niger Delta kings and nations in that region. So when people tell you that Nigeria wasn't responsible for the slave trade because they were a colony, that's just false. They weren't even a colony until after 1861, and it was the British who came in and imposed a moratorium on slavery by force. You understand that? So you've been lied to. Let's go to Ghana. Somebody type, I've been lied to in the chat room. Come on. There's your fact. Look it up. There's your fact. I've been lied to. You've been lied to. Let's go to Ghana, the Gold Coast. Somebody type the Gold Coast in the chat room. When did America outlaw slavery? 1808. There's some other treaties we're going to talk about too. But somebody type 1808 in the chat room. Ghana, now they saying that Ghana's not responsible because they were a colony of British. When did Ghana become officially become a British territory? And it gained its independence on March 6, 1957. So these coastal fortifications were built by Europeans for slave trade. So that whole Gold Coast, which is now Ghana, those kings and nations participated in the transatlantic slave trade all the way up until it became a colony. Right? Look at that. That's well after 1808. That's over 60 years afterward. So you've been lied to again. When our African brothers and these Pan-Africans say, well, how is this British colony responsible for the slave trade when they didn't even have autonomy over themselves? They had autonomy over themselves through the entirety of the slave trade. Or from the period we're talking about, from 1808, when the transatlantic slave trade became illegal and they were still participating in it, they were still a nation. And then look, they became free again. So the Europeans left and the Ghanans took back control of their country. So let's keep it. Senegal. It became a French colony in the 17th century. So yeah, maybe the French did participate in slavery, but still the transatlantic slave trade, as far as America is concerned, ended in 1808. So you might not have a whole lot of people from Senegal in the United States, but they went to places like Brazil. Slavery didn't end in 1860 everywhere. Brazilian slavery, I think it went all the way up into the 1890s. The Kingdom of Benin, the Kingdom of Dahomey was heavily involved in the slave trade. Now, the Kingdom of Dahomey is now called Benin, okay? It was heavily involved in the slave trade. It became a French protectorate in 1894. So when you say that Benin was a colony and therefore they weren't responsible for their participation in slavery, that's a lie. They didn't become a colony until 1894. The slave trade, the international slave trade became illegal when? In 1808. So they participated heavily. The Gambia had several trading posts for the slave trade. It became a British colony in 1843 and gained its independence in 1965. So this is well after 1808. This is well after the international slave trade became illegal. Sierra Leone, a significant center for slave trade. It was established as a province of freedom in 18. This has a little different history because remember, it was a province for freedom in 1787 for free slaves. It became a British colony in 1808. At the same time, the slave trade became illegal in America, and it got its independence in 1861. You see? Now, for the purposes of our conversation, it may not have as many Africans who came from Sierra Leone because the British colony had that on lockdown. All right, Angola. Now, Angola was part of the Portuguese Empire, and they dealt with slaves all the way up to the 1890s down in Brazil. Okay, this is not really affecting too much African Americans for the most part, but it shows that. But what you're seeing is most of these African colonies, this colonialization didn't take place till well after slavery had been outlawed. So it was the African kings who participated, African nations who participated in slavery willingly. They weren't forced to do it by these colonies. They might have had agreements by these colonizers, but they did it on their own volition. They did it for the money. You see? Here's another one. We talk about the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And the Congo River Basin was a major source of slaves. Some of you all know about King Leopold of Belgium. And the Congo became his private possession in 1885. Again, this is well after the international slave trade became illegal. 1885, that's almost 80 years after it became illegal. That's when it became a colony, right? Well, he took it as a private possession. It officially became a colony in 1908. Again, that's 100 years after slavery was outlawed. They got their independence in 1860, the Republic of Congo. This is the neighbor. It became a French colony in 1880. Again, that's almost 80 years after the international slave trade was ended. So you guys are starting to see Mozambique again. This is an old one, right? Togo. It became a German protected in 1884. Again, way after the international slave trade was ended. So what I'm basically telling you is that these countries, their participation in slavery, the international slave trade, predated their colonization. You guys follow me on that? If you understand what I'm saying, hit the number one button. Hit the number one button. Hit the number one button if you understand that. Why that's important. We are suing African countries for the things that their kings did. We're suing African countries that did not exist in the form of a republic or a democracy for the things that the nations that were ruled by their kings did. Now, for a short time period, they were colonized, but the dirt that they did was done under their own autonomous kings and queens. Do y'all get that part? Huh? The dirt that you did, selling your own people, you did that on your own volition. You did that while you were kings and queens and getting rich, selling Africans into slavery. Then it became illegal and you still participated in it. And it wasn't until 1880, 1870, until the white folks came in and locked your country down. But you had done your dirt by then. Y'all get that? Do you get it? Now, any of you African brothers who want to come in here and debate me, come on in here and get this smoke. I got it for you. You want to come in, let me know. Now let's talk about some legal precepts. All right? How is this legal? Is this constitutional what you're doing? Is it based on sound treaty? Is it based on sound U.S. constitutional law? Because it discusses several legal precepts. We talk about the establishment of federal jurisdiction. We basically say that the federal court will have jurisdiction over this. That's easy to understand, right? Makes sense. You're suing a foreign country. You don't want to leave that to some state judge somewhere. We understand the venue provision. You should sue where the people are or sue where you can find a defendant. That's pretty basic. Now, here's one that's difficult. And we're going to dig into this. This is important, right? Sovereign immunity. Listen, normally, sovereign nations are immune from lawsuits in foreign courts. And this act that we have, it creates an exception for cases involving allegations of participation in the transatlantic slave trade. Why? Because this is one of those human rights type violations that you can't just get away from. But what it does is it allowing African nations to be held liable in U.S. courts for their actions of their predecessor states. Now, remember I told y'all earlier that there's already law like this on the books? So somebody type JASTA in the chat room. Somebody type JASTA in the chat room. Somebody type JASTA in the chat room. Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act. JASTA. This is something that was put into place after 9/11. Somebody type 9/11. Somebody type 9/11. There are allegations that the country of Saudi Arabia participated in the in 9/11 through its nationals. So what this law does, what JASTA does, is it allows U.S. nationals, members of armed forces, government employees, contractors, and their families, or states, if affected by international terrorism on U.S. soil, to sue. It enables civil claims against foreign entities suspected of supporting terrorism, even if not designated as a state sponsor of terrorism. This literally allows American citizens who are affected by the 9/11, their buildings got knocked down and you died in New York, you got sick, members of the armed forces, people who participated in, civil servants, firemen who rushed into those buildings, flight attendants, people who got killed in those plane crash. This law allows them to sue foreign entities suspected of supporting terrorism. That means Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, all these different places. This is on the books right now. So when you say that that you can't sue an African nation in America, well, yeah, you can sue a foreign nation in an American court. Why? Because we say so. Because just like slavery, terrorism, and that sort of stuff is one of those human rights violations that we're not going to let you get away from. So there's precedent out there for that. Now, the Supreme Court hadn't directly ruled on the overall constitutionality of JASTA, but it has ruled on it. And it went so far as to say that in JASTA, even if you aid and abet, right? It says here, however, it has addressed claims under the Act, particularly regarding the requirements for aiding and abetting liability under Section 2333D2 of the Anti-Terrorism Act as amended by JASTA. This was notably discussed in Twitter. Now, they said, look, Twitter, you can't hold Twitter responsible, okay? Somebody sued Twitter because they said this particular terrorist act wouldn't have happened but for Twitter. So they've already ruled on it, you see? And they said, even if you aid and abet a terroristic act, right? Even if you aid and abet, you could be sued for it. So that stretches it out a little bit. You see, that stretches that expands this a little bit. So what I'm trying to say is this is out here. Now, there's already been lawsuits against this. This has already been litigated. 9/11 victims' families win multi-billion-dollar settlement against Iran. This is an article that came out in 2018. Now, Iran didn't even bother answering the lawsuit. But the thing about it is, Iran has wealth and other things out. They got oil. So all these people got to do is just, hey, we got a judgment. This country has oil, it has resources. We can go out and start seizing their oil shipments. At some point, it's going to happen, even if you have to wait years. But these things have already been ruled on. This is not unknown. Suing a sovereign country in the United States is not something that's unknown. It is not so far-fetched that it can't be done. Are y'all with me? You understand that? So listen. You folks who are saying that you can't sue an African country in the United States court, yes, you can. If we are willing to sue Saudi Arabia, who supplies us with most of our oil, you damn sure better be certain that we'll be willing to sue Benin and Nigeria and these other African countries. Bottom line is it can be done, okay? Are you guys with me? Y'all understand that concept now, right? Do you understand that concept? We just discussed exceptions to sovereign immunity. Do y'all understand it? Hit the number 1 button if you understand it. It's been done before. Huh? Matter of fact, if you understand that, type cut to check in the chat room. Now, successor liability. This is a big one. This legal concept is where we're holding modern African nations accountable for the actions of historical empires, kingdoms, or entities that participated in the slave trade, establishing a continuity of legal responsibility. Some of you are like, well, how can you do that? How can you sue a country that didn't exist? Well, first of all, there's already established rulings suggesting that states and nations are responsible for their predecessors. And here's some examples. Oh God, what did he just do? I'm just giving you some examples of how it's already been done. Treaty obligations. Successor states are generally considered to be bound by international treaties and agreements entered into by their predecessors, unless there's a clear indication that the successor state intends to denounce or renegotiate the treaties. So here's the thing. Slavery was legal in America when America wasn't America. When was America formed? When did we declare our independence from Great Britain? 1776? Right? Slavery began in 1619 here in the United States. So from 1619 to 1776, we were, for the most part, a British territory, for the most part. So how can you hold America responsible for what Great Britain did when there's a clear indication that the successor, in this case, Great Britain, I'm sorry, in this case, the United States, the 13 states of the United States at the time, denounced and would have had to renegotiate the treaties because it was a whole different country at that point. So that's why this doesn't apply. See, but when we're talking about places like Benin, and we talk about Nigeria and the Gambia, remember, those nations were responsible for the illegal participation in the slave trade after 1808. They were colonized for 50, 60 years, and then they went back to being their own independent states. So there's a continuity of rulership. Unlike in the United States, where a whole new nation was formed that had literally fought a war against its owner. They literally fought a war and formed a whole new nation. Benin was a nation ruled by a king. It was colonized, and then it became a nation which was formerly ruled by a king that is now ruled by a republic. So there's a continuity there that doesn't exist when we talk about the relationship that the United States have with America. And that's why, for those people who say we should sue America for reparations, but damn, America formed in 1776. By 1860, we fought a war to end it. And by 1808, the transatlantic slave trade had been ended. Or it may at least made illegal. It's culpability there, but not enough. It's not clear and decisive, in my legal opinion. or not. You can parse it out, but there's no continuity there. Nevertheless, this principle is emphasized, and when I say principle, I'm talking about successor liability, is emphasized in the Vienna Convention on succession states in respect of treaties. So what this means is this whole concept of succession liability is present in one of the most important international treaties ever signed, the Vienna Convention. Somebody type Vienna Convention in the chat room. Somebody type Vienna Convention in the chat room. It's not unknown, y'all. I'm not talking out the side of my head. I'm telling you that we have sound treaties and law that supports this foundational Black American Reparations Act that I'm proposing. Now, debt obligation. Successor states are often held responsible for debts of their predecessors. Woof. Yeah. The principle was evident in the practice of states following the dissolution of the Soviet Union and Yugoslavia, where successor states assumed the portions of the national debt. Yeah, just because your country falls apart, you still owe that debt. Just because you went from you got taken over by a colony and then you were able to fight and get your freedom 100 years later, you still owe African foundational Black Americans for what you did when you were in charge and it was illegal. You still owe. Just like the Soviet Union, those independent Soviet bloc states, they still owe those debts. Somebody type successor liability in the chat room. Here's another one. There's an evolving consensus that successor states may bear some responsibility for addressing human rights abuses committed by predecessor regimes. The president, the president of Nigeria is still responsible for what the king of the Niger Congo did, or the Niger Delta did. The president of Togo Benin is responsible for what the king of Dahomey did. Because these were what? Likened to human rights abuses. So it's there. And we do this also for environmental liabilities and stuff like that. Now, again, this is something that needs to be litigated. It's not just an easy fix. But what I'm saying is there's precedent in international treaties for holding successors responsible for what their predecessors did. Are y'all with me? Let me know if you're with me now. Hit the number 1 button. Now, there's also specific language that talk. And we have that in the Vienna Convention of 1978. It says that any treaty in force at the date of the succession of the states respect to entire territory. I can read through this, man, but for the most part, it's there. I'll put this up. You guys slow it down. You can read it. This is treaty language, which talks about successor states being responsible for their predecessors. Now, here's something I found interesting. Among the African nations in relation to their signatures to the Vienna Convention on succession states in respect to treaties of 1978, here's what you need to understand. All of these African countries had not signed the convention. But here are some countries that indicated they were committed. Now, the ones on our list that were culprits: Angola, Niger, Senegal. All of these people, they have a legal commitment right now under the Vienna Convention. And so if they're bound by the terms of the Vienna Convention, then guess what? They can't run from their responsibility to foundational Black Americans. Now, some of you saying, well, is this applied retroactively? Huh? If this was ratified in 1978, how do you make it retroactively applicable? Huh? We'll talk about that when we come back. Y'all hit the #1 button, man. Y'all, if y'all have learned something, if you like what we're doing tonight, then make sure you go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're if you're learning something, then make sure you pay me for my time. We'll be back.
In a minute, Blizzard King, this is Winter Dennis Sperling Podcast. You are rocking with the realest black men representing. Ain't no lies, cause we winning, catching flies, ain't no feelings. Uncle D, we the villain, baby. We just left the village, baby. Now we in them villas, baby. Dennis Sperling Podcast, tuning in, we get it, baby. You can hate the player, hate the game. We love all you haters. Hate watch, hate watch. Calling lovely ladies, hands on your knees. You can thank us later. We snatching the crowns off of queens, we obliterate them. Tell the truth, shame the devil, they trying to eliminate us. You begging to sipping haters, peeling layers off potatoes. Whoa, Southern Cadillac music like Outkast. Ain't jumping without bass. Dennis Sperling Podcast. Whoa, Southern Cadillac music like Outkast. Ain't jumping without bass. Dennis Sperling Podcast. Whoa.
All right, welcome back. You guys make sure y'all hit the #1 button. Let me know you're up in here. Thank you guys so much for those of you guys who contributed to the super chat. Thank you guys so much for that. Let's see if we got any more. No more super chats. I get, well, I know it's a tough conversation. Y'all might be mad now. We getting late up in the evening. But we're going to keep on getting this done. We're going to get it done, all right? We 2 hours in. Show me your appreciation by hitting the thumbs up button. Show me your appreciation in any way you see fit. But I want to basically, what's the importance of, we're going to go back to talking about these treaties. Signing a treaty suggests a state's intention to review and possibly ratify it, but only ratification makes the treaty legally binding, okay? Now, there are some treaties on the international slave trade, okay? The ratification status for Supplementary Convention on the Abolition of Slavery, the Slave Trade, Institutions and Practices Similar to Slavery. There was a treaty that went out in 1956, okay? Now, none of these African countries ratified it, but there are several that did. Ghana is a party to it, Ethiopia, Ivory Coast, Libya, Madagascar, Nigeria, Niger. So these countries which were culprits in the slave trade, the international slave trade, they ratified it. Liberia was also one. Now the question is, can we apply, since they signed the treaty in 1956, and we're trying to hold them responsible for something that happened in 1860, can it be applied retroactively? Well, as far as criminal sanctions are concerned, the penalties associated with treaties and conventions on slavery and related practices are not generally applied retroactively, okay? However, under international law, principles such as non-retroactivity in criminal law typically prevent the application of penalties for acts committed before the relevant laws were enacted and ratified. So generally speaking, we wouldn't be able to hold them responsible for criminal sanctions of participating in the international slave trade after 1808 and after these other treaties that I'm gonna read to that outlaw slavery. We wouldn't be able to do that, but there's an exception to that, okay? This principle is enshrined in various human rights documents. Let me see. This principle is enshrined in various human rights activities, such as Article 15 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which states that no one shall be held guilty or any criminal offense based on acts or omissions that were not criminal at the time it was committed. Okay, so 1808, 1860. What do we need to do, y'all? We need to find out whether or not this was illegal, whether or not these people who are now parties to these treaties, the Vienna Convention, whether or not the act of slavery was illegal at that time, because that's the only way they can be held responsible. Okay, so let's look at these. Let's look at some treaties. The Slavery Convention of 1926. This convention aimed to abolish slavery and similar practices and requires state parties to enact legislation necessary to make these practices illegal. However, they do not specify provisions for applying penalties retroactively adhering to general principles of international law. Okay, that was 1926. Okay, well, we working our way back. What about the International Labor Organization, like the Slavery and Supplementary Conventions, the ILO Convention, Convention number 29, Forced Labor Convention of 1930, Convention. This was still after, right? This is still after. Slavery was illegal at the time, but here's the thing, and this is what I want to point out to you. Slavery was clearly illegal at the time, or the importation of slaves was illegal in the United States in 1808. But was there any international treaty in place? The answer is yes. Slavery was illegal at the time of the Wanderer and the Clotilda. That's in 1860 and 1859. There are several international treaties that specifically aim to combat the slave trade. And here are some of the most significant. Listen to this. The Ashburton-Webster Treaty of 1842. Right? So when was the Wanderer brought to the United States? 1858, 1859? When was the Clotilda? When did it sail to the United States? 1860. Well, this treaty, the Ashburton-Webster Treaty, was signed in 1852. Well, who are the parties to it? What's also called the Treaty of Washington. But U.S. and Great Britain, right? The U.S. and Great Britain included provisions for the joint naval enforcement against the slave trade on the African coast. So these Africans knew that the slave trade was illegal. There was a treaty in place saying that it was illegal. I think it's worth a shot. The Ashburton Treaty of 1842 was negotiated and signed exclusively by the United States and Great Britain, with no direct involvement of African countries during that time period. African nations were not participating in the international treaties in a manner that sovereign states do today. Many parts of Africa were under colonial rule, and therefore local population. Well, we already talked about that. The parts that are relevant to what we're dealing with, they weren't under colonial rule. They was out there roguing, okay? Many parts of Africa were under colonial rule, and therefore the local populations and their leaders did not have the opportunity to ratify or protest the international treaties. Nevertheless, there was an international treaty in place, okay? And that's what you have to understand. It's there. Now, I want to go over some laws and treaties that were in place at the time. And here's a list. There was an act prohibiting the importation of slaves, 1807, 1808. We talked about that. And this law made it illegal to import and bring slaves into the United States from any foreign kingdom, place, or country. So it was illegal in the United States. Act to protect the commerce of the United States. This is another law of 1820. This act classified the international slave trade as piracy, punishable by death. It was a severe escalation in the penalties of participating in the international slave trade. You guys got to understand something. From 1776 to 1860, the United States and its government did a whole lot to outlaw slavery and the importation of slavery. It did more than any other nation in this world at the time to outlaw slavery. I want y'all to understand something. But for you all who say, well, let's go back to Africa. Africa was still selling y'all to people when America was saying, no, we not having that no more. Keep that in mind. And you got to owe the foundational Black Americans who were here, Frederick Douglass, all those abolitionists who said, yeah, we need to outlaw this. We owe that. The outlaw of slavery came because black folks here and other abolitionists said, we don't want to participate in that blood sport anymore. All right, let's read on. So you got an act in 1807 that outlaws importation of slavery. 1820 makes it punishable by death. 1823, the Slave Trade Act of 1823. This is right here in the United States. This act authorized the president to use armed vessels to enforce the prohibition against the slave trade and increase penalties for American citizens participating in the slave trade. What does that tell you? That tells you folks were still bringing slaves from Africa to the United States. They had to keep enacting laws. Here's another one. Act, in addition, the act prohibiting the slave trade of 1842. This act increased the enforcement of earlier laws by providing more detailed regulations and punishments for U.S. citizens and residents engaged in the slave trade. Here's another one. Act to amend and consolidate the laws relating to the abolition of slave trade in 1862. This passed during the Civil War, and this act strengthened previous laws by increasing penalties and closing loopholes that slave traders had exploited. You see what's going on? The United States of America, our country, had at least 5 laws on the books, beginning 20 years after it became a country, to outlaw slavery, and plus a treaty, the Slavery Convention. Let me slide down here. Plus the treaty that it had with Great Britain in 1842. So we have been an anti-slavery importation country for many, many centuries now. Okay. Now, what about, and we still talking about successor liability. Are y'all bored? Let me know if you're bored. If you're bored, let me know. If you're bored, type bored in the chat room. I'll go do something else. I can go get ready to ease on up out of there. I got plenty of stuff to do. If you're bored, let me know. If you're not bored, type FBA in the chat room. If you're not bored, type FBA in the chat room. Come on now. If you're bored, let me know. If you're not bored, type FBA in the chat room. Type cut the check in the chat room. Type reparations in the chat room. Type reparative justice in the chat room. Come on now. Let me know. I need to know. We almost finished. But I need to know I'm making an effect right now. The U.S. Supreme Court, and we talk about successor liability. That means even though your nation did not exist, you are still held responsible for what your predecessor did. It's international law. It's been done before. Now, we already understand that these international treaties say, yeah, you can do that. Well, what about the United States Supreme Court? The U.S. Supreme Court has not issued a direct ruling on successor liability. However, federal courts, including the Seventh Circuit, have developed a doctrine of federal common law successor liability, particularly relevant to labor and employment law claims. What this basically is saying is somebody goes out of business or somebody gets taken over by another company, and you say, oh, well, all those debts belong to somebody else. Oh, no. This new company, you inherited that. You're going to make sure your former employees get paid. So there's already a doctrine saying that, okay? And here are some of the cases. East Central Illinois Pipe Trades Health and Welfare Fund versus Prather Plumbing. Here, the Seventh Circuit case discussed the federal common law successor liability in context of ERISA, and that has to do with liens, medical liens, following asset sale, okay? And the court focused on whether there was a substantial continuity in the business and whether the predecessor was unable to satisfy the claims. In other words, is this for the most part the same company that it was? Okay, well, you got to pay. There's another case, 2013 case, and this is a 2021 case. The case applied federal common law successor liability to the Fair Labor Standards Act, highlighting the importance of notice and continuity in operation. Third Circuit did the same thing. Ninth Circuit. So that it's out there. Somebody type successor liability in the chat room. All right. So now the next time somebody says that these nations didn't exist, I want you to type successor liability right below their names. I'm serious about this. I'm so sick of having to repeat the concept of successor liability. First, they tell you, well, those nations didn't exist. And then when you tell them successor liability means they still have to pay for it, shout out to Lance Jackson. Thank you so much. Cut the check. They say successor, they say the nations didn't exist. And you say successor liability. And then what else do they say after that? Well, those nations were colonized. And I just showed you that the dirt that those nations did as far as selling other Africans into the transatlantic slave trade occurred while they were still autonomous nations under their own rule by their own kings. You see? So now they can't escape. You can't tell me they didn't exist because I'm going to tell you successor liability. And you can't tell me they were colonized at the time because I'm going to tell you a damn lie. Somebody type damn lie in the chat room. Somebody type damn lie in the chat room. Y'all didn't become colonized until them white folks had to come and shut y'all down from the international slave trade. Y'all wouldn't give it up. Them Europeans had to come in and shut your international slave trade down. Ain't that something? Isn't that ironic? The white man had to come shut black folk in Africa down from selling other black folk into slavery. How about that? So don't come in here with that damn lie. You would have still been selling other black folk into slavery had the British, who had already outlawed the international slave trade, come in or not come in and shut you down. Damn, it's painful to talk about this. It really is. And you wonder why we have so much pushback from Africans when we want to join with them. They know what they did. Their leadership know what they did. They're doing it right now. Don't let them get away with this, brothers. Don't allow your hearts and your love and your admiration and your longing to belong to something interfere with your logical and reasonable mind and doing what's in your best interest. Them people that went back to Ghana and got their houses knocked down a couple of weeks ago. Why would you go back to a place that sold your black behind into slavery in the first place? Huh? Why would you go to a country right now when you have an international slave trade going from the west coast of Africa all the way up through Saudi Arabia and the Middle East? Right now. Look it up. The Arab, the sub-Saharan or the Saharan trade slave trade pre-existed the transatlantic slave trade by about 1,600 years. You can't fool me. You're not going to fool me, and you're not going to fool us anymore. Now, so we talked about some precepts, some legal precepts. Let's keep talking. Y'all with me? Let's talk about extended statute of limitations. How do you sue somebody for something that happened 100 years ago? And how much more time do they have to sue? Well, this act that I'm proposing, somebody type statute of limitations in the chat room. Somebody type extended statute of limitations in the chat room. Somebody type extended statute of limitations in the chat room. The act extends a period in which claims can be filed to 50 years from its enactment, acknowledging the long-lasting impact of slavery and providing a wider window of justice. We still suffering. You still got black folk in Alabama in Georgia and Mississippi, they ain't too much better than they were when we got off the plantation. Now, the question that we're asking is, are these legal precepts sound? And the Supreme Court has already ruled that extending the statute of limitations in a civil case is generally constitutional. Now, again, you may not be able to impose criminal sanctions on a nation for the acts of its predecessors, but you damn sure can impose civil sanctions. Cut the check, right? Now, the Supreme Court has already said this is fine because this is based on the understanding that statute of limitations serve as a procedural tool to encourage the prompt filing of claims rather than conferring a substantive right to avoid litigation permanently. In other words, the statute of limitations is something that we use to motivate litigants to go ahead and file a lawsuit. It does not confer a right on a defendant not to be sued. You don't have a right not to be sued. If you've done something to somebody, we would like for them to sue early, but if we don't sue you early, that don't mean you have a right not to get sued. You did something wrong, especially when you have African Americans, foundational Black Americans who continue to suffer the consequences of slavery. Now, I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to open up this chat room. You understand? I'm going to open up this chat. I still got a little bit to go, but I only want the people who are adverse to this. Only the adversary, only the ops only, okay? Ops only are allowed to come in here and tell me why this law shouldn't go through. Tell me why it's unconstitutional. Ops only now. The link is in the chat room. Y'all make sure you go ahead and sign up now. That said, we're going to continue. Where the ops at? Somebody type cut the check. It's me and you against I. You and I. It's going to be me against you now. Come on up in here and tell me, all you YouTubers who have a problem with foundational Black Americans getting reparations from African nations, come on in. Come on in. All of y'all, come on in. Show your face. Don't run from it now. You got to show your face. We don't deal with cowards up in here. You're going to have to cam up. I want to see you. I need to see you. Cam up. Cam up. Now, that being the case, we're going to go ahead and let the chat room fill up. But we're going to finish this preview. So again, when we talk about statute of limitations being extended, the United States Supreme Court has already ruled that this is constitutional. Okay? And I explain why. Now, the remedies. This is pretty much self-explanatory. What we want a check. Somebody type cut the check in the chat room. Remedies. Right? Remedies. We get that. Now, the question we have to ask, is it sound? It's going to be a tough fight. It's a lot going on. But let me share something with y'all, man. Like the brother Malcolm X when he went to the motherland, and we started off with that. There is an African proverb. I don't know exactly where the proverb came from, but it says something like, a child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down when he feels warmth, to feel the warmth. A child who's not embraced by the village will return and burn it down to feel its warmth. See, you had your chance to come over here and get us. You had your chance, brothers. You didn't. Brother Malcolm asked you all to help us what? Help us bring this situation to an international forum, and you didn't. Now y'all gladly come to the United States and use our resources and pretend to be black folk and go to our schools and use all of our different, you use your black card then. And then when you come up and become successful, then you say, oh, you put your little flag out. You rejected us. You failed to embrace us. You have. This whole Pan-African thing has been a one-sided, us giving it all and y'all not doing much of nothing. So as Africa has failed to embrace Black Americans, you're going to have to suffer the consequences. I don't mind sending y'all back to the Stone Age. I don't mind wrapping your wealth up and taking your oil. I don't mind doing it. I don't mind extracting your natural resources and exploiting you and sending you back 300 or 400 years. Why should I? You ain't got no love for us. You see us over here dying in the street. You ain't sending no ships and boats and planes to come back here and get us. The most you do is send a whole bunch of migrants over here to utilize more resources. But you don't care about us. Even they come over here and talk bad about us. While you sitting in our spots that we create, you wouldn't have came in here in 1945. Not in the numbers you coming now. Now that we got it all laid out and got the systematic racism thing at least manageable, now you want to come over here. And yet you don't want to embrace. You knock our houses down when we come over there. You invite us back. You apologize to us. But yet you do what? You ignore our plight. That ain't right. Either way, where the ops at? We got an op here. Let me see if the brother, why you got on the
good, brother?
Why you got on a mask, brother? What you doing? You hiding from the police?
Conceal my identity, but you said show your face, so I oblige you.
I respect that, man. So let's make sure you're opposed to this reparations, this proposed legislation. Please tell us why.
No, not really, but pertaining to the African story.
I need people who are opposed. Are you opposed or you pro? Are you pro or
when
opposed?
it comes to the African slave trade story, it's not all the way factual because you already had a whole bunch of Indians being majority chattel slaves within the 13 colonies.
Let's slow down. Let's focus on the Clotilda and the Wanderer incident. Are you saying that the Clotilda incident didn't happen?
For one, they don't have the Clotilda or the Wanderer. No slave ship has ever been found.
Sir, brother, they found it in 2019.
Brother, I've seen the article of it, and all they found was bits and pieces of wood. And I even seen the documentary on Netflix.
It's right there.
The documentary said that they never found the Clotilda.
They did find it, brother.
They didn't. They didn't find a ship that matches the Brooks diagram. They have not.
Brother, see,
what is found out is
all these people are lying. Are you saying that these Africans who are shipped over here in the Clotilda and their descendants are lying? All them people in Africa town right now in Mobile, Alabama, you saying they all lying and you telling the truth?
Absolutely. I dropped a link in the back chat. It talks about who the actual slaves were in the United States.
And you telling us that these folks in Mobile, Alabama, in Africa town, are lying about their ancestors being stolen from Benin and brought to the United States, to Mobile, Alabama in 1861. You are
absolutely saying, because that hold on, brother. Hold on.
No, you can't do that. I'm gonna ask you a question. Your position is that these good folk in Mobile, Alabama, and these TV shows and these documentaries are lying, and we're supposed to believe you over all of this empirical evidence and all this proof. Tell us.
Absolutely, and I dropped the link in the back chat of one of my sources.
Brother, slow down. What are your credentials?
Oh, I'm a scholar, actually.
Okay, where did you receive your degrees from?
But hold on, where did you receive your degrees from, sir?
Grambling State University, I received a degree in biology. I got my JD from Southern University. I got my LLM from Tulane in environmental energy related raw. I got my PhD and my master's degree and my other PhD from Texas Southern University. Now, where
Right.
did you
Is
get
that
your
in
degrees from?
archaeology? Is that
Sir,
in ocean sonography?
where did you get your degrees from?
Sir, I went to UNCC.
And
That's
what
in
did you
Charlotte.
graduate in?
I graduated in 2019.
Okay, and what was your degree in, and what was it, and what sort of bachelor's degree was it?
So I've studied a little bit into archaeology.
I'm just asking you a simpler question. You got your degree in 2019, and what was your bachelor's degree in?
Sir, I studied in a bit of archaeology.
Okay, but brother, you're not answering the question.
My brother, we're not gonna flee from the topic of Clotilda. We're not gonna flee from that.
Brother, it's my broadcast. I'm simply asking you, what are your qualifications? If you don't want to answer your qualifications because you don't have a bachelor's degree, say so. But let's not waste my time.
We're not gonna assume that to me. We're not gonna project.
Let's not waste my time.
I'm not wasting your time at all. I'm not.
Do you have a bachelor's degree or not?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Okay, so can we
slow down, Playboy? Slow down. No, we're gonna get back on topic. So you don't have a bachelor's degree, which means you are not an educated person. You're not a
actually I am. I am.
Okay, well,
yeah, I am.
So what makes you more educated than people who have PhDs?
For one, the definition of education,
sir,
of dogs.
What makes you more qualified to speak on this subject than the people who are credentialed?
Right, and Tariq Nasheed is.
What makes you more qualified to speak on the subject of the Clotilda and the Wanderer than people who have studied it and are credentialed?
Right. So are you getting,
sir? I'm asking again. What makes you more qualified than the people who are credentialed and who have studied this subject?
Right. So I'm more.
What makes you more qualified than the people who are credentialed in this subject area?
What makes you?
I'm asking you the question.
What makes you?
Because I agree with them. You disagree with them. So I'm trying to lay a foundation for why we should believe you. I am trying to lay a foundation for why we should believe you. Now, are you going to answer the question as to why you're more credentialed than them or why we should believe you? Yes or no?
Right, because we're not getting.
Are we going to answer the question? Yes or no? Are you going to answer the question?
Yes, I'm answering.
Credentialed?
Can I answer?
No, you can't. I'm going to ask you a question again. Right. Are you going to answer the question as to why we should believe you? Because considering that you're not credentialed in the area. Go.
Right. So are you going to keep muting my mic?
Go. Answer the question, please.
Got you. I'm more credentialed because we are not getting reparations off of the Clotilda.
So you're not credentialed to answer the question.
Yes, I am, because you're not getting
we're supposed
any money from it. No,
we are supposed to believe you with no credentials.
Are you getting?
We are supposed to believe you and no credentials.
Are you?
Or somebody who is qualified to speak on the subject and who studied the subject. No.
Gotcha. So
your day is gone. We are no longer believing people who are not qualified to speak. You are not qualified to speak on the subject. I agree with them.
Qualified to
presenting the case.
Sir, are you
on the other hand, are trying to come in here and tell us to not believe.
Are you getting
studied this subject?
No.
That is why we have.
All right. So are you going to get back on topic?
No. That's
back on topic.
That's why we've been sidetracked by 100 years, like people like you. Now you can go ahead and ease on up out of here. Let's get some folk in here, right? I want some people who are opposed to it. Okay, opposed to this. But matter of fact, let's bring it back in. Come on in, Orange Man. Orange Man. What now? Tell us to go ahead. Go ahead. Tell us now.
Right.
Tell us based on
so are you gonna keep muting my mic, bro?
Go ahead on your let's hear your non-credentialed opinion. Let's hear it. Go ahead. Praise God.
Gotcha. So are you getting reparations off of claiming the Clotilda, which has never actually been found? No. So what the actual information is, if you pull up into the real research behind the transatlantic slave trade, which I dropped in the back chat, mind you,
Okay.
it talks
So,
about the real identities of these slaves.
Who is Lewis? Who is Cujo Lewis? What's his real
For
identity?
one, the Cujo Lewis information is heavily
Cujo.
censored by
Cujo.
Melville
Cujo.
Herskovitz.
Cujo.
The woman that got the interview from Cujo Lewis, Zora Neale Hurston, her information was locked up in storage and heavily censored by a
Why was
Jewish
that?
man by the name
Why
of
was that?
Melville
And why was
Herskovitz,
that? Why was that?
because they were pushing a fake African narrative
Wrong.
on
Wrong.
Negro slaves.
Wrong.
So what are you talking
Wrong.
about? Yes,
Wrong.
it is. This is
Wrong.
facts. This is
Wrong.
facts. This is
Wrong.
facts.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
The
it
reason
is.
that it was locked up is because our leaders at the time thought it would be distasteful for Black Americans to learn the truth about how Africans had participated in the slave trade. We were dealing with a Back to Africa movement at the time. She says it in her notes. She says that Booker T. Washington cut her pay in half and refused to pay her when he realized what the subject matter were. It's right there in the book. Do you have the book?
Yes,
Or
I
you
do.
just talking about something you read off the internet? Praise God.
No,
Go
it
ahead
is
and
not off
go
the
ahead.
internet. And
Go
are you
ahead. Go ahead.
familiar with Melville J. Herskovitz?
Keep on. Yeah, he was the
Are
father.
you familiar with Melville J.
He
Herskovitz?
was the father of what we call American history. Yes, I am. Go ahead. Please keep
He's
going.
not the father of what we call
Keep on going. Don't get off the
African
subject.
American studies.
See, let me explain something to y'all. This is why the whole reparations movement, when you had these folk like this, uneducated, just talking out the side of their mouth, this is why it's been distracted for 100 years. And see, when you get somebody who's an attorney, he ain't said nothing about the statute of limitations. We haven't talked anything about succession, successor liability. He just wants to get on here and just like the rest of these so-called Pan-Africans and neo scholars and just talk gibberish. Go ahead. Let's hear some more of your gibberish. Go ahead, brother.
Right. So where are your degrees? I want to see them. Can you show
You
us?
Google me, baby. Google.
I don't want to use Googlepedia scholarship. I want to see them.
Google my degrees.
Right. So are you a prison wizard or something?
Man, I am a Hall of Fame attorney who has been inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Gotcha. So when are you going to get those reparations based off the Clotilda?
Brother,
were your family on that Clotilda?
Did you not see me sit here for the past 2.5 hours and explain to you the proposed legislation that would allow foundational Black Americans to file lawsuits against?
No, I came in late.
No, you're not going to cut me off. You're not going to cut me off. I just spent the last 2.5 hours on this YouTube page explaining to those who would listen that my proposal is to file some legislation, have it passed by the House of Representatives and the Senate, and ratified by the president, which will present foundational Black Americans 50 years from the date that it is ratified to do the research and then file suit against the defendant successor nations. That's what it
where
said.
did you get foundational Black Americans from? Because that's not literally a academic thing. That's not a legal thing. Black in itself means you're dead in the eyes of law. People back then did not go by black before the 60s.
According to who?
That's in the legal definition of the Black's law.
Have a degree. You don't even
That's
have a degree.
in the legal.
Dude on the internet with orange mask on.
My guy, it's red actually.
I'm not your guy. Okay, you and I are not on the same level. You just a dude on the internet hiding his identity. That's who you are. You are a dude on the internet hiding his identity.
It's a teacher.
You're a distraction.
Right?
You are.
Tariq Nasheed's a Moor, right?
No, let me finish.
His whole name is.
You're gonna stop talking. Let me answer the question. Foundational Black American is simply another adjective added on the front of Black American to further denote who we are as a people. It's a concept that I saw floating around the internet that emanates with the brother Tariq Nasheed. That's where the term came from. And it's a very descriptive term because it denotes the African Americans who are here before 1860 when we were still enslaved. That's why I like the term. Whether it's
So
illegal,
did you know that
right,
before
right,
1860?
right. Whether it's a legal term or not depends on if it's used in litigation or in a statute. That's how that works. Now,
Killed
go
in
ahead
this
and
shit.
speak.
I'm
Let's
a
go ahead
body.
and speak. Go
Okay.
ahead, praise God. Let me
Okay,
give you
since
some
you're a
time.
lawyer, you should be
I
familiar
am a
with
Hall of
Black's Law
Fame lawyer.
Dictionary.
No. I am
You
a
should be
Hall of
familiar with.
Sir, I am a Hall of Fame inducted lawyer. Not just a lawyer, Hall of Fame. Go ahead.
Gotcha. So if you are a Hall of Famer lawyer,
It's not an if. It's not an if. I am a
okay,
Hall of Fame attorney. Keep going,
a
Playboy.
Hall of Famer lawyer. So
Praise
you
God.
would be
Hallelujah.
familiar with the definitions you use.
I
So
ain't
when you
used
go
that
up in the
definition. I use
courthouse talking
racial,
about some
Black American, and I
foundational
only
black,
define two things up
hold
here.
on, brother.
Mm-hmm.
When you're listening to
I'm
prison
not your brother.
wizards like
You and I are
Tariq
not brothers.
Nasheed, who's a scammer, mind you.
You and I are not brothers. You and I are not brothers. Go ahead, keep
Right.
going.
Okay. Are you saying you're a black American, right? So I'm
No, I'm
telling you the
saying that you
right
and I
shit
are
to
not brothers.
use to get
I'm saying that you
reparations.
and I are not
So
brothers. That's
what
what
are
I'm
you
saying.
talking about? What are you talking
I'm
about?
saying that
Black
you and
is
I are not
dead
brothers.
in the eyes of law. Are you familiar with
You
Dred
and
Scott?
I are not brothers. That's me being inducted into the Southern University Law Center Hall of Fame for you all. Thank you so much.
Right. And I hope you get your endeavors in this FBA shit, but it's not gonna work.
Hey, watch your
I'm
language
sorry,
on
but
my
it's not gonna
broadcast.
work.
Yeah, watch your
So
language on my broadcast. All right,
it's
I'm gonna
not
let
gonna
you
work.
go. Is there anybody else who wants to come on in and have this conversation? I need somebody who's actually thoughtful and intelligent. Okay, I don't want any more of this prison babble and this blah 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 blah. And you trying to redefine commonly understood terms like black. Black is dead. Since when is black dead? Is that what are you talking about? That's just weird. I want to talk to somebody intelligent. I want one of my African brothers to come in here and tell me, hey, brother, our country didn't exist at the time. How can you sue this country? Not that babble. I don't want to hear any more prison babble. Okay. Intelligent people. If you oppose, be opposed. I'm okay with that. Just be intelligent. You see? That's how we can push this forward. You can't have conversations with people like that. It's just a waste of time. I can explain it to you. I can't make you understand, but when you come in with your own itinerary, you want to spare your food. The man got an orange. Can you imagine him in front of like Congress or the House of Representatives trying to explain the concept of reparations? They won't even take him seriously. You see what I'm saying? And these are the type of people that we have in certain corners of the Black community. They're caricatures, and you shouldn't listen to them. Now, I entertain them for a minute for the purposes of YouTube, but you don't entertain people like that. That's a waste of time. Now, I'd like to get some intelligent, well-spoken people in here who have actually listened to the broadcast, okay? But when you're dealing with folk like that, just ignore them. They're a waste of time. It's a distraction. So where the ops at? Where the real ops at? Come on, Cam up. Come on in here. Let's have this conversation. I know there's some intelligent people who are listening. I am going to give you an opportunity to speak, but let's be intelligent in our conversation, in our discourse. That's where I'm at. Come on in. Matter of fact, anybody who wants to come in, if you have questions about it, you don't even have to be opposition. If you have any questions about it, you want to carry this conversation on. I truly believe this generation, as evident by that fella who was here earlier, is too filled with cowards. They don't even want to address this situation. It's too tough for them to deal with. But come on in. We'll keep talking about it. In the meantime, we'll run a quick commercial. Come on back. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Intelligent people, Let's get some intelligent folk up in here. Not any more of that foolishness. It's just a waste of time. I'm gonna hit the button real quick. We'll be right back. Y'all make sure y'all hit the #1 button. I got a few more minutes. Come on in.
Podcast, click your mouse pad. Yeah, we out back. Hit the like, hit subscribe. Don't just hate watch, cause we outside. Let them hate watch. Go and play pop. We just lay back. He don't play that. We don't play back. We don't play back. We go way back. Black men, yeah, we earn something. Tune in, gotta learn something. Uncle D podcast bump it. Likes up, hit the sub button. Black men, yeah, we earn something. Tune in, gotta learn something. Uncle D podcast bump it. Likes up, hit the sub button. This is Dennis Burning Podcast. Don't just hate watch, hit subscribe and let them know we outside. Don't hold hate, donate. Super chat, cash app. Put something in the collection plate. Church.
I want y'all to make sure y'all hit the #1 button. And we're gonna kind of get back to what we like to do over here, man. I need y'all to check in at a certain point when it's time to check in. I need to checking in to start happening again. We got to go ahead and get this algorithm pumping. Go back to the broadcast. So, if nothing else, you all see why the reparations movement has been stymied for the past 100 years, because you have a lot of people who truly, they just want to get in the way. You know, they just want to interfere with Black Americans' ability to get reparations. They truly have been more of a hindrance than a help. Now, we need moving forward, there needs to be a considerable amount of shut up, Black Samurai, what's happening, man? You got a cam up. My man, what's happening? What's that? Hey, look at this dude. He's still there, man. Look at that, man.
What? Hey, let me get him, Uncle D, man.
No, don't
What's going on, Uncle D?
Oh, if you gonna roast me, how about you go over my sources I put in the back chat?
Leave him alone, man. What's up, bro? What you want to say today, bro? What are your thoughts?
Hey, man, listen, man. You gotta understand that this ain't no laughing matter, and ain't nothing to be sitting there smiling about, bro. Like, you got real people out here that's putting words in, talking to the government with some power, bro.
Yeah.
Like, this ain't nothing. I got ancestors that was in slavery, that escaped slavery, but we ain't escaped. We didn't run. We escaped fighting, and that's a whole different story. But at the end of the day, bro, this ain't no laughing matter, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is the real ball game right here.
Glow, what you got to say, bro? Shout out to Black Samurai. Glow, what you got to say, bro?
So, like, when you really consider the structure of America, I was kind of like explaining this in a military sense to somebody else, is that like the structure of America is founded in is based in the concept of business. So when you're talking about, and usually all nations are based in the concept of business. This is why you have like republics and democracies and stuff like that. And pretty much when you're speaking about like an injustice done like or an illegal business transaction and that were founded as a nation on the premises of business, and you're referring to a illegal business transaction that happened years ago. If we have laws in place to justify that an illegal business transaction took place, and we can act on it retroactively, why would you not take the opportunity to do so? You have to have a thorough understanding of the foundation of America, or like just the foundation of nations in general. You have to have an understanding of economics. So like when you have conversations with people that don't take in the full context of nation building, you're unable to have a fruitful conversation, because they look at, like, they pretty much pigeonhole one concept, and they stick to that one concept instead of incorporating the full idea, the full concept.
See, so the thing is, man, when you get new facts, you incorporate new facts. That's a sign of intelligence. That's a sign of thoughtfulness. You can't just say the world is flat. But we've sailed around it at this point. It's not flat anymore. The world is still flat. Then you just look stupid.
Exactly.
You just have to. That's part of being intelligent, incorporating new facts and growing with them, and hopefully that will help you have a better understanding of the world. Because at this point, man, we have a truncated understanding of history. It's very difficult to speak to people who just get stuck on certain things, especially when you're not formally educated, because formal education forces you to have to deal with people.
Yeah.
You can't just look at some YouTube video, read a book, and then be set in your ways. No, you have to literally fight with people. I remember when I was in college, I had to fight with folks about my religion, about mathematical concepts, engineering concepts. So everything that you learn is tested. But when you're dealing with lay people, it's just nearly impossible to have a conversation, especially on something as complicated as this. But I need some pushback, and I let Ty talk for a minute. So Black Samurai, tell me, brother, and you've been here before, you don't have to hold back. Tell me what you don't, you may like the concept, but tell me what you don't like the most about my proposed reparation legislation. Tell me what you don't like. Hit me. I'm okay with you hit, but go ahead. And we've had these conversations before, but tell me what you don't like. Play the antagonist. Go ahead.
Well, what I don't like about it is going after the African countries in itself, because they played a part in the international enterprise of slavery, of slave catching and stuff like that. And the main, I'll say, center of that enterprise was in Europe. You have to attack the European country, mainly the European countries of Britain, Spain, France, Portugal, all those ship sailing, business was that, international things. So you gotta, if you want to bring it all in together, I'll think you have to add those other countries to make that claim. Because it's a percentage though, because some of those families can directly trace genetically what part of Africa they came from, so they have that claim. But there's other claims as well,
And that's a fair point, and I like that, and I'm glad you brought that up. Somebody type solidary obligor in the chat room. Somebody type solidary obligor in the chat room. In the law, there's a concept called solidary obligor. And what that means is that if you and 3 or 4 or 10 other people cause someone some harm, all you have to do as the plaintiff is sue one of them for the full responsibility. And it's on him and his cohorts, or as they say in the criminal, it's on him and the codees to figure out how to apportion the fault. Your job as a plaintiff is not to figure out whether or not you no longer can walk because somebody stabbed you, shot you, or hit you in the back of the head with a bat. It's your job to figure out which of these individuals is responsible of however many, and then sue them. So in the concept of this, in this reparations deal, yeah, of course, those European nations are responsible. Of course, those insurance companies are responsible. Of course, the many families who participated in slavery, and of course they're responsible. But you know who else is responsible? That successor of Benin. So I'm going to sue them.
Right.
And I'm going to let them and their lawyers figure out who they're going to file cross claims against if they want to. You see, that's not my problem as the victim. And so that issue is already addressed in the law. Okay. What's your follow-up request to that? What are your thoughts on that?
All right. So are you familiar with civiliter mortis or
Black Samurai? What is your follow-up question to that, Black Samurai?
Oh, to that part of the party. Okay, that sounds fair. That sounds fair. But like, to me, the monies that they made off that, made off that free labor. See, people don't understand the value of that. Me being in finance, I understand it, because those companies that were doing that business are now still running today, and running a very big market. There's some very big companies out there that was basically founded off us and our backs.
All right. So let's quantify it. How much reparations that black people owe? Just give me a number. I don't care what it is.
I
Give
would
me
say
that number.
a reasonable number. A reasonable
I don't
number.
even care if it's reasonable. Just give me a number.
Because I don't believe. I'll
Bro,
say.
just give me a number. I'm gonna tell you. Look,
I'll say 1.7.
bro. If I'm the judge and the judge tell the lawyer how much you want, Mr. Spurley, you don't start talking like that. You give him a number. What's the number?
I got one.
1.7 million.
All right, that's not enough, but I'm gonna give you 1.7 million. Why do you care which one of these defendants this 1.7 million comes from if you owe 1.7 million?
Why do I care?
Why do you care? If it takes 1.7 million to compensate you for your loss, why do you care which one of the defendants it comes from?
Because this is his story. Because it was many hands on the pot, Uncle D.
Okay, brother, do you want your money or not?
Yes. I'll say yes. I'll say yes.
So you want your money? 1.7 million is owed. Why don't we go after this person and get it then? I'm saying if we can get this legislation passed, we file suit in the District of Columbia, you file suit in the Southern District of Alabama, you lay out the fact that this ancestor, that ancestor, that ancestor, we use DNA tests, historical information, we use the language that's spoken, we use the historical facts, we use the data, the captain's logs, whatever, and we prove our case in court. And they say, okay, this person owes you $1.7 million. You not gonna take that money?
Of course I'll take it. I'll be a fool not to.
You would be a fool not to take it. So why do you care which one of these defendants that the money comes from? Tell the truth. Tell us why. I know why, but I want you to tell us why.
Well, mainly, you know why? Because of my ancestors, and I listen to.
You have an affinity for Africa,
right?
Because you have a romance with Africa. I'm not like that. I told y'all earlier. I'm from South Central Los Angeles. There's a reason why Charleston White said brothers in LA kill more black people than anybody else. I ain't got no love for you. You on the other side, you on the other side, black, white, or whatever. It's on. You see what I mean? That's the mentality. And I started off with that. That's what separates me from a lot. But you know what? It's changing because the generations that are coming behind me are a lot less like you all and a lot more like me. Ruthless, cutthroat, and we don't really care. Just give me my money. You see what I'm saying? That's the difference. So again, as I said, I don't think this generation has the appetite to do what's necessary to get Black American, foundational Black Americans their reparation. I think y'all hearts are too big. I tell you brothers all the time, you too nice. Y'all not like me. Let's get my man Glow Hardy and we'll go back to Ty Long. Glow, I need you to use your well-spoken, articulate self, your brilliance, and tell me why I'm wrong. Don't go with what he said. We already addressed that. Tell me what you don't like about this proposed legislation.
So, I'll play devil's advocate because I'll play devil's advocate. So, if we're going to sue for reparations and the ones that sustained the torment of slavery was based here in the United States, why wouldn't we go after the federal government if, at some point, even though that we were brought over here by Africa, since we were brought over here by Africa, they wasn't the ones that kept perpetuating they didn't perpetuate it in the sense that they were our owners for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they also are not inheritance to the land that we that benefited off of the slavery. Is that a fair argument statement?
If you can explain what you meant by, I understand generally the concept, but when you say they weren't the ones that benefited from the land, explain that a little more.
So Africa, even though that they benefited from the transactions from slaves from their land to this land, America, they benefited off of the transaction of the sale, but they did not benefit off of the labor that was a consequence of us being sold over here. The Americans did. The first founders did. They were the ones. That's why they're profiting. The whole American infrastructure is profiting off of the Black Americans. So like, even though that we were sold, I think that the argument for those who would be opposed to you, they would say they were the one that caused the most damage. Like, let's even say that we give a little bit of responsibility to Africa. They weren't the ones that have over time and consistently imposed these torments on us. You know,
Okay.
so like there was a sustained economic benefit from us being here
All right. So
by the
here,
other
I get what you're
colonizers.
saying. What you're saying is, in your opinion, the people who bought us derived a greater benefit financially than the people that sold us.
Yes.
So now we want to get back to the narrow scope of this proposed litigation. Who's the plaintiffs? Who did I state the plaintiffs were?
Africa.
Africans who were sold when?
And during the Clotilda,
No.
1806,
After
1806,
1808.
1808.
Examples of which are Africans who can trace their roots back to the Africans, the 400 Africans who were brought over in the Wanderer, and the 110 Africans who were brought over in the Clotilda. And why is it that we picked that date? Why is that?
Because the transatlantic slave trade, I think it was 1806. The transatlantic slave trade was outlawed in America.
Because in 1808, the transatlantic slave trade became illegal. Bringing Africans to the United States after 1808 from Africa became illegal. So in doing so, an illegal act was committed. In 1842, the United States and Great Britain they had a treaty outlawing slavery. So we got a narrow group of plaintiffs, those who can trace their lineage.
I got a counter argument.
Hold on, brother. Let me finish. The narrow group of plaintiffs, those who can trace their lineage back to Africans who were brought to this country in 1808 when it became illegal to participate in the transatlantic slave trade. And who is the defendants? The predecessors of those African nations who participated. So it's a very narrow scope. We don't have to dig into all of that other stuff. You see what I mean? We don't have to dig into it. That's something for somebody else to do. Right now, we know we got about 12 potential defendants, and we have anybody who can trace their heritage back. What, bro? Stop doing the thumbs down. That's not professional. Okay, you already up here.
I already have a rebuttal to debunk all of that.
You're already up here with an orange mask on, and you got black men speaking intelligent. You a bad look for us.
I already have information that would debunk everything.
They already think we're clowns. The rest of the world looks at us as clowns. And you got a clown suit on right now, man. And we having a serious conversation. Bro, we having a serious conversation and you got a clown suit on.
This ain't the time, bro.
I'm entertaining
so why do you read?
I'm entertaining this, and I'm trying to treat you as respectful and as dignified as possible. But look at you. Look at you compared to these other black men. So just chill, bro. I'm gonna give you a minute. You dominated the first 20 minutes of the opening. Just chill, brother.
I couldn't, but you muted me.
Bro, chill. You're going to have your chance. No more thumbs down. This ain't kindergarten. It's not elementary. I'm having an intelligent conversation with this black man. Just be respectful. Now, as I was saying, Glow, we don't have to deal with all of that. That's a mess to try to sort out. You see what I'm saying? So let's deal with this narrow issue. Let's get a toehold in this mountain. Somebody type foothold in the chat room. Somebody type foothold in the chat room. We have got to start somewhere, because for the past 100 years, I've heard a lot of people talk about reparations, but nobody has gotten any law in the books. That's all I'm saying. I'm not here to try to eat the whole elephant in one sitting. Let's just take a bite out of it and let the generations who come behind us proceed. That's what I'm saying. Now, give me a minute. Let's go to Ty. Do you have any follow-ups, Glo, before I finish?
Yes.
Go, okay,
So,
well, I want to get to this young man.
It's,
But what
it's
else
quick.
would you like to say quickly so I can get over to him?
So the point of contention that I have is we still accepted that sale. You know what I'm saying? So that would be another point of contention. We still accepted that sale, even though that it was outlawed. You know what I'm saying? So like, even though that they sold us over here illegally, we still accepted the transaction by harboring them. Like, we didn't make any effort to deport them back to Africa after that law.
I get what you're saying. I know where you're coming from, but at that time, slavery was still legal in the United States. Right. It was illegal to import Africans from Africa here. So we're dealing with the illegality, the illegal aspect of the transaction.
We was treated like Cubans.
It's easier to convince people that you are entitled to something for an action that was illegal. Here's what you got to understand. Slavery has been legal throughout the world basically since the beginning of time. Right. You see, I mean, you look in your Bible and slavery is legal. Slavery is legal in some places right now. That's why we got so many treaties against it. But what we're talking about is the narrow actions that occurred at a time when the transatlantic slave trade was illegal. Let's keep it there. Let's build some law from that. Let's get some treaties from that. And then as the generations move forward, just like when you saw when slavery was outlawed, they had like 5 treaties inside of 50 years that got into more and more detail. That's what you do. You don't eat the elephant all at once. You eat it one bite at a time. Let's create some law. Let's move forward. Let's leave some for the next generation. You see what I'm saying? As we develop the law, then it will get more sophisticated and we can address those issues. All right, but you asking too much. Baby steps. That's what somebody said in the chat room. Let's go to Ty Leong. What else would you like to add, brother? Go ahead.
Okay, so I have information that would already debunk everything that you're trying to propose that we have.
You have information that would debunk the statute of limitations?
For one, that African claim is not going to work because they didn't bring any Africans like that to the United States. It's only 5% of them that were brought. Most of your chattel slaves would be Indian.
Where do you get your information from?
Bro, you got people who got documented evidence.
My God, my God, I posted in the back chat for you to read this book.
Where do you get your information from, Ty Long?
There's 2 sets of information that the mainstream scholars do not present to the public. They give you a fake whole African story. Hold on, bro.
Encyclopedia Britannica. Can you cite some sort of legal treatise?
Hold on. Okay. The Smithsonian Bureau of American Ethnology states that the blood of the Southern Negro is unquestionably Indian.
Oh my God.
No, let him talk.
No, what you mean? Oh my God, this is real shit.
Yeah, go ahead.
And also, hold on, bro. This is real shit. This is academic level.
Watch your language.
So,
watch your language.
Excuse my French. Okay.
No. The blood. When you say blood, hold on, slow down. When you say blood, are you talking about DNA evidence?
All right. For one, DNA is not really used in genealogical research. It's not even proof of a lineage. It's not.
So you
even Rick Kittles and all them will tell you that it's only less than 1%.
Bro, you gotta. When I'm talking, I'm asking you a question. What are you saying about DNA? Go ahead.
All right. So the DNA ancestry kits do not give you a definitive ethnicity or tribe. It only gives you a hypothetical migration pattern.
You said that the blood of the Southern Negro is Indian. And when
is unquestionably
blood,
Indian.
You gotta stop and listen. And when you say blood, I'm trying to determine whether or not you're referring to DNA.
Yes, I
think the only way you would be able to tell someone's genetic history is by examining their DNA. So we're not using colloquial
It's through
terms here.
genealogical.
Sir, we're not using colloquial terms. We're going to use scientific terms.
DNA,
so
bro.
what do you mean when you say the blood of the Southern Negro is Indian? Are you saying the genetics of the Southern black man is Indian? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so
Now, can I speak? Are you going to
stop? Where does Southern start and where does Southern stop? What are the territorial boundaries? Go.
Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, all those places right there in the fucking span
Watch your
of the
language.
United
Watch
States.
your language.
Come on, bro. You can talk.
Okay, why do you keep muting my mic?
Watch your language. Watch your language.
Why do you keep muting my mic?
Watch your language, because your language.
All right,
is
okay.
soft. Yeah, this is the third time I've
Can I
told you.
talk?
No, you can't. I'm going to respond.
Right.
So when you say Southern, you're referring to regions of the United States that would typically be considered in the southern part of the United States. So are you telling me that people in New York, in Oregon, in Seattle, and California are excluded from this DNA, this Indian DNA?
They are not.
Okay, well then so your definition, it falls flat.
How does it fall flat?
If you're saying, because I'm going to tell you, if you're saying the blood of a Southern Negro is Indian and you can't determine, and you're telling us that Southern is limited by the South.
All right, so
no,
can I
you're
talk?
gonna stop. No, you can't. I'm giving you an example. I'm telling you what I'm letting you hear how incoherent your statement is. Because
incoherent. Wow.
If you're saying that a Southern Negro is not in Oregon or California, and then you're saying, but they can be, then your argument falls flat.
Because
man.
they came from the South.
You can't even define it. You can't even define what a Southern Negro is.
Hold on. Let me continue. Are you going to keep muting me?
Yes, I'm gonna keep muting you. Anything you guys want to add to this fella?
All right.
Hold on.
How did it fall apart?
Maybe he don't understand what I'm saying.
I have the documentation.
Let me
Samurai, explain to him what I'm trying to say.
Muting my mic.
Explain to him what I'm trying to say, Black Samurai.
What I'm trying to say to you, Ty, is these people not just that has more to do. They have physical proof. They have genetic proof. They have documented proof. They have so much proof that they can't deny that it didn't happen. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's what he's trying to tell you.
All right.
Glow,
can
would you like to add to that before I let him come on back in? Go ahead, Glow.
So I'm gonna play devil because let me preface what I'm about to say. Like, first of all, I agree with what everything Uncle D is doing, but I'm playing devil's advocate. Let's accept the fact, or let's play to the fact, the supposed fact that the true African slaves have a drop of Indian blood in them.
It's not even a drop. It's
okay.
Please finish, Glow. I apologize for this guy. He's rude. Go ahead, Glow.
Even then, why wouldn't we suppose the conversation for reparations if we also speak about, like, let's say that they were our brothers, like the Indians were also our brothers, because we had some type of drop of Indian blood in our African bloodline as well. So why still would we not fight for reparations? Why would we not attribute pivotal parts of slave history to them as well? Why do you think that? Why I'm legitimately asking you this. So are you saying that we should have our reparations taken from us, and it should just be given to like the American Indians and those with the like Indian bloodline, like Black Indian bloodline?
Right,
what are you saying?
You can address Glow and Black Samurai's questions to you. Go ahead.
Because for one, before you interrupted me and tried to say that Indian falls flat, black has no standing at law, and our culture came from the Mississippian culture. Are you familiar with the Mississippian culture? It's a part of, like, you had indigenous people that were already here in the Americas that were of Australoid phenotype. A Mongoloid is not the representation of the American Indian. And when you try and say, go to court and try to advocate for reparations, talking about a foundational black American, it says that you are dead in the eyes of law and they cannot respect you based on you claiming to be an African slave. They didn't bring any Africans into the United States like that. They were already utilizing Indians as majority chattel slaves. It's in the book that I just put in the back chat that you refuse to look up. So why are you putting words in front of my screen? I can't even fucking focus without these people talking.
Man, this guy, his mouth is just so rotten. I mean,
I can't believe
it. What I hope, like, a lot of our people could get more educated, so we could communicate better. Yeah. You know, listen, if we could communicate better, things will be a lot better, man.
Yeah. You got to watch your language, Ty. You got to watch your language. Okay.
All right. Where's pseudo history and conspiracy theories? Because I have evidence.
Where are your sources?
Where's your evidence come?
Click in the back chat and you'll see it.
No, can you source a person or
tell us? We don't have to look through. Tell us what you mean. Tell us. Have you read these sources that you're talking about? Like, talk to us.
All right, right. So why do you guys follow Tariq Nasheed? He's not a fucking source expert.
Tariq Nasheed. I'm asking you your sources.
You're using his lingo, though.
What are your
the foundational Black Americans, it was around way before Tariq. You know what I'm saying? The government knows what he's saying. He just put what his version or his name on that. Okay, it's not
right. So why is he used as the face of it?
Just because he said
he made it popular.
Yeah, he just made it popular. Like Kevin Samuels, he talked about dating dynamics and it all blew up, and now everybody's trying to copy him now. You know, you got to understand, son. Like, listen, you know, you gotta base your argument on, okay, they're Indians or not. You got Black people who were here already that got their land stolen. They got their property stolen, you know, and it was enslaved just because they were Black. So it's not just Africans, bro. You know what I'm saying?
So I can trace my lineage all the way back to the 1600s, and my surnames are right there down there in South Carolina on street signs. And my family were known for building houses all throughout the Carolinas.
You gotta have documented proof. You gotta have either.
I have documented proof. I went down to the Registry of Vital Statistics.
You said you can trace your language. You can trace your. Hold on, slow down. So you can trace your history back to the 1600s. That means you can trace it back to 1501 to 1599.
As far as the research on my family lineage on both sides, they go back to Virginia and the Carolinas in the 1600s.
But it wasn't even no Virginia then. There was no Virginia in 1509.
In the 1600s, there were Virginia Company. What are you talking?
1600s means the 1600s means 1500 to 1599.
Right. That's King George.
I didn't say 16th century. I said 1600s.
Oh, no.
Okay, so 1600. So from 1600 to 1699, you can trace your heritage back.
Yes, the Corbett's, the Platts, the Harveys, the Harris, the Rapers.
No, bro.
Watch your language.
The Westmorelands.
No, they're documented. Can you dig their bones up? Can you dig their bones up and do a genetic test that link all of that? In the court of law.
I know where they're buried. I know where they're buried.
He doesn't believe in genetics, man. You don't believe in genetics.
For one, when you're going off of these African ancestry DNA kits,
we're not talking about that, bro. We're talking about real genetic tests, bro. We're not talking about a third party.
Hold on. This is what you sent me. These are the links that you sent me, bro.
Yes,
This
it tells you the identities of what these slaves were. They were Indians from different parts of the Americas. And it tells you that Negro and Indian are.
You sent me the Dred Scott decision. Something from civil to, I don't even know what this is. Free online dictionary.
Well, I mentioned that a few years ago.
These are not resources, man. These are not resources.
That's just somebody.
This is not resources,
website, bro. That's not documented sources,
that's
man.
all
That's just a website.
I was here for the whole conversation when he was arguing about being black and like the definition of black. Bro.
They put all
like that's like switching the.
No. They put all us in a bucket, bro.
Shout out to Torian Jones. Thank you so much, my dude. Ty Long is pushing pseudo history.
How is that pseudo history? Explain.
They believe their beliefs can't tell them no different. Yeah, I mean, this is why the reparations argument has been held up so long. You got folk like this who just
all right. So you believe in the glory?
They haven't been tested in academia, and they've been saying what they want to say.
They just running their mouth, Uncle D. You know?
Yeah, but you know, you got it. That's what we did. That's why I don't listen to them.
Because I have ancestors with documented proof that have been told me stories since I was young.
Yeah.
And I went to other ancestors' home and saw pictures that date back to 1890. My great grandmother, okay, and it is way beyond then. And to have this clown saying 16 something back, dude, that was like, you know, who's the current monarch right now of England right now? Was it Charles, King Charles?
Yeah, something like that.
That was around the time of King Charles back.
But let's get back to the subject matter. I'm just okay. So here's the thing. Here's what we got to understand. My whole point, and hell with all that history, okay? Because see, here's what you have to understand. Once you get something codified into law and it gives you a right to do something, that's all that matters. All that matters is Congress's findings, not that fella. All these people who think they're Indians. And let me say something. I want y'all to understand something, man. Let me just. Black people hate themselves so much, and they hate the fact that our history starts as an enslaved people from Africa. They will do anything they possibly can to escape that. They will tell you that their mama was Indian when in reality, their mama was the bed wench of some white man. They will tell you that they people are from Japan. They will tell you that they're part French, German, and Napoleon. And they nose as big as the typical African that comes here straight from the west coast of Africa and the sub-Saharan. Black people hate themselves so much because of that. They're embarrassed. They've been trying to escape for centuries. And this is just this, you calling yourself an Indian is just another form of you hating your experience here in the United States. It's time to grow up. You got to embrace that ugly baby. You got to accept the fact that our people were brought to this country largely, the vast majority of which, millions were brought to this country from 1619 all the way up until the last slave ship was brought, which was probably after the Cotilda, to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. You see, we were brought to this country in the hulls of ships. We were shackled. We were sold by our own kindred spirit, our own kindred brothers and sisters for a profit and brought here in the hulls of ships, period. That's it. We started off at the bottom. That's where we at. Stop running away from that. It is what it is. Just because who you were don't mean that's who you are now. Being enslaved is a condition. It's not who we are as a people. Stop running from it. Stop trying to claim these Native. I don't want to be no Native American Indian. I don't want to be them. I love being a black man. I love being a descendant of Africa. I love being a child of Africa. I love that. That's what makes us who we are. You think these Indians are running a 4-2 in the 40? Or is that your African DNA? Let's line all these Indians up right now and get me 17 black dudes from New Orleans and Alabama and Mississippi, and let's see who's the real African.
And
You understand
Georgia.
what I'm talking about?
Right, man, right.
If Indians was that damn good, and if they were, if the
Well, Uncle D, they don't
the
understand.
NFL will be filled up with these so-called Indians.
They don't understand.
They're not. They filled up with Africans. You understand what
the
I'm saying?
NFL, the NBA, the boxing. Yeah. We dominate every single sport, and then not only do we dominate.
Yeah, that's that African DNA. Stop running from who you are, black people. Love yourself enough. Recognize this is what it is. It happened for a reason. We ain't the only people that have been enslaved throughout history. This is where we are. Stop being cowards. Don't come on nobody's. Don't put your faith. That's why this boy is wearing the goddamn mask. He don't want nobody to see how silly that is.
Right. They don't want to run on his job. He probably worked at Wendy's.
All these black folks with these big ass noses, right? These big ass noses and African features. Oh yeah, y'all are Indians. Y'all some Indians. That's what y'all are. You nappy-headed Negroes are not Indians. You understand me? I can put some children next to me. They all look like. Go get some kids from the projects and go put them next to some Nigerians. They look. Oh yeah, we know where you from. You understand what I'm saying? So stop with the denial and the hate for your condition. It is what it is, baby. But that's what makes us greater. We were put in the fire. We were put in the cauldron, and we came out better. We are some of the toughest. We're some of the toughest folks that have ever existed on the planet, and we still have our humanity. Stop running from it. I don't want to be no goddamn Indian. I ain't no Indian. I'm a black man. I live in America. I'm descended from foundational black Americans who can trace their lineage to the slave ships and the plantations in America and North America. That's who I am. You understand me? Stop running from it. Stop allowing these cowards on the internet to give you a cowardly way out. Yeah. Yes. We were put on the hulls of the ships. We survived. We here now. It's a new day. Slavery is over. You see what I'm saying? You can go from a slave to a king. That's something that's repeat through history. You see what I'm saying? But go ahead, brother. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up.
Uncle D, they not even talking about the merger that happened between two black bank owners that is an accumulation of $1 billion. They have $1 billion in assets.
You don't want to get off on all that, bro. Just let's wrap this up. Is apology not accepted? Africa forced to pay Black Americans reparations. What's your closing thoughts on this proposed legislation?
Yes, I think that we should go forward with this legislation. I think that it is totally applicable for Africa to be the main person or the main entity that we're suing because we were sold over here by them. There's no reason to continuously romanticize it's kind of, I forget the term, where you idolize your abuser or something like that. What's the term called? Stockholm syndrome?
Stockholm syndrome, yeah.
We need to get up out of the Stockholm syndrome, and if we really trying to get this money, stop arguing against reparations. Maybe you could be one of the people that benefit from this. He already just seen, he made it so that Congress legitimizes the findings, or Congress legitimizes the basis of this lawsuit. So it's like, why would you even fight against that if you could possibly be one of the people that benefit from this?
I just want to make my people, I want to get my people to a point where we have our own resources. They don't have to give us land. They don't have to give us anything. We gave them a chance to give it to us. Now it's time to take it. You take what's yours. Right. You understand? The world belongs to whoever's strong enough to take it and hold on to it, period. That's where I'm at. I'm not a begging black man. I'm not going to sit up here and beg nobody to love me. I don't care if you like me or not, but you're going to give me what's mine. And if you the first one up, you the first one up. Bam, you get knocked down. Africa clearly has committed some atrocities. We're not holding you responsible for all the atrocities. We're not going back to 1619. We just gonna narrow it to what you did after 1808 when slavery was illegal and you knew it was illegal and you still had your kings participating in that. They still were deriving a benefit from that. That's what we focused on. And we can prove that. That's not so far back in history.
Right.
They had all sorts of recordings on that sort of thing, whether written, some verbal. We had the technology to determine that. There's case law on that. It's there in the law books, and there's chronicles on that. So we're gonna deal with that. It's not easy, but it's not as difficult as trying to go back to 1619 and all that other but no, we're gonna focus on people who were brought here illegally after slavery was outlawed. Okay, in 1808. Brother Black Samurai, what else you got to say, bro?
Well, I remember we was talking about the value at 1.7 million. If you like, I did a study, or a few of my college buddies, of the current like value of the stock market, because some of that money that started the stock market came from slave labor.
I get it, but I'm focused on how much is owed and which one of these defendants is the most readily available for us to sue.
Right.
We can serve them. We know where they are. We can serve them, and they got money.
Still
let me tell y'all something, and let me tune in those who've dealt with this process before. Once you start talking about suing people, and it's more than 1.7, I'm thinking maybe $1 trillion, something like that.
Yeah, I'll say around 77 million per black.
But hold on. Once, and I want the intelligent people in the room to listen. This is for the super intelligent. When you negotiate from a position of power, not weakness. All them goddamn Indian arguments and that we came here from Martians and all whatever they talk about, throw that out the window, okay? You negotiate from a position of power, okay? What is power in this situation? Power is you get this legislation enacted. Power is you commence these lawsuits. Power is you say, we will sue you in an American court, and it's going to be an American judge and an American jury. And for the most part, they don't like you Africans like that. It ain't like we trying to get reparations from other Americans. Oh, no. It's going to be some white folk from Alabama, some black folk from Alabama, and you're going to bring your black self up in there with your black continent, your lawyers, they're going to light them up. They'll hit you for $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Next thing you know, you're looking at a cascade of lawsuits worth billions of dollars. That's power. So now what? Okay, well, I got $1 billion lawsuit in the country of Ghana, and their ex-president has wealth that's being held in the United Kingdom. I have $1 billion judgment, and there's an oil tanker off the coast of Nigeria in international waters that's worth about $100 million.
Right.
There's another oil tanker that just landed in the great state of Texas in the refinery, and when it's finished, our company is supposed to send them a check for $30 million. But guess what you can do with an American judgment? Y'all know what happens when these people get judgments against you. Look, what do they do with these judgments? They start doing what? Right. Seizing assets. Somebody type seizing assets in the chat room. Somebody type seizing assets in the chat room. So when you start saying things like, oh, Africa doesn't have money. Well, you got resources. Your leaders seem to be having a lot of money when they want it. And so the question is, can we pierce that corporate veil? It's not really a corporate veil, but can we say, well, look, African leader, we see you worth $1 billion over here and you pillaged that from your nation. We're just going to go ahead and seize that account that you have in Switzerland and satisfy this judgment for these people down in Alabama. Because we've taken that American judgment. We've had it recognized under a mutual treaty between the UK and America, and then also some of the other countries. So we got treaties with these countries. That's what these white folk do. That's what these westernized countries do. They have treaties with each other. You take this American judgment, you take it to Switzerland, you take it to Germany, you take it to the UK, and you start seizing all these assets. What do you think is going to happen when you start seizing these assets?
Transfer of power.
Transfer of wealth. Transfer of wealth.
What are the African nations gonna do to try to prevent it from happening?
Freezing their assets.
They're gonna
What
fight.
are that? What are that? Shout out to the Sleep with the Third Eye. Apology not accepted. I'm all in. Thank you.
Countersuing.
Huh?
Countersuing.
Nah, they're not gonna countersue. What are they gonna sue us for?
Right.
I would say defamation, but
what's gonna happen is they're gonna want to negotiate.
Right. They go. Okay.
And how do you negotiate from a position of weakness?
No.
What did I say earlier?
You negotiate from a position of power.
You negotiate from a position of power. So now you got 20, 30 billion dollar lawsuits, and you say, look, we didn't have to go out like this. But you didn't send no boats over here to get us. And now you owe us $30 billion and we got another 45, 50 years of suing you. So what you gonna do? So you know all that red tape that you black folks face when you try to go to Ghana? You know all that red tape you face when you go to Nigeria, all that red tape that they give you, you got to pay this and do that. All that goes away.
Right.
You know when you want to go over there and get land and they say, no, we got to ask the chiefs if they're going to give you land. All that goes away when you got $1 billion judgment. Either you going to give me what I want, or I'm going to take what you don't want me to have. You see how that works?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you deal with people. And then, you know what? When we get fair and square, then we can be brothers again. That's how that works. You negotiate from a position of power. You don't negotiate from a position of weakness. Right now, y'all begging these Africans to love you and let you in. You outside knocking at the door. I'm telling you, go knock they mother effing house down. I'm gonna take all your stuff. You not know where I'm from. We in the robbing and jacking. You understand me, homeboy? Break yourself. Y'all in the room. And then we could talk about peace. Then we could talk about love. You understand? Once you realize whatever you don't give me, I'm going to take from you. And see, y'all got to separate yourself from your little hearted feelings about Africa. Nah, you owe me something. And I'm doing this for my children. I'm doing this for my legacy. I'm doing this for my foundational Black American people. Even the ones that think they Indians with their confused selves. We doing this for our legacy. We need to flood the streets of the United States with that $1 trillion worth of assets over the next 50 to 100 years.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You see what I'm saying? That's what we need to do. It don't have to come all at once, but over the next 50 to 100 years, and we'll be all right. See, we'll be all right. You see? And so again, once you get the proposed legislation ratified and it becomes legislation, it's wide open. You see what I mean? And all that's going to happen is some lawyers are going to be like, well, yeah, let's go ahead and run with it.
Right.
You understand me? And the last thing you want to do is deal with American lawyers. This is what we do. Billion, trillion, whatever. This is what we do. Can you imagine? They'd be lined up. You have white folk. Oh, yeah, you black folks need reparations. My God.
Pay up.
Come on in. You need reparations.
If you don't want to pay up now, you're going to be paying later.
Yeah, we'll take our cut. We'll reduce our fee to 30%. We'll make sure you blacks get all your money you want. You sue those Africans, my darn it. They won't have no problem with that. You will have every American, white, black, whatever on your side when it comes down to, you gonna let us sue these Africans? You mean you don't want reparation from white people? You don't want to pillage the American treasury? You want to get more money to bring it here? Oh yeah. You see what I mean? So what did I just do? Number one, I just used racism and turned it on his head. I used racism in our favor. You see what I mean? They let them be racist against the Africans and help these blacks get our money. You see what I'm saying? Look, I know y'all don't like this. This is distasteful. Y'all got too many warm feelings. I don't give a damn. I want to see you win. Somebody type win in the chat room. All I want you to do is win, baby.
Yeah,
I want to see you win. I want to see you become a people who has their money. I want you to stop begging folk for what's owed to you. I want you to use your political power and use your political might to help us get some legislation like this on the books so that now you have the opportunity to get what's yours. And what's going to happen is once you get that legislation in place, all these African countries who have been ignoring you, they're going to pay attention to you. Right now, they just, how they're not getting nothing from us. Oh, you can't, Africa does not have anything. Oh, no, we're gonna see what you don't have. We're going to start taking your oil, seizing those bank accounts, seizing them presidents, and we're going to take your money from you. And then I bet you, oh, well, let's talk, brother. My brother, we need to talk. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Just win.
They think we pushovers.
Shout out to Glow Hardy. Thank you so much. And shout out to the Orange. Thank you so much, Orange, man. What else you want to say before we leave?
All right, so I'm about to cook you.
All right. Anyway, God bless y'all. This is Uncle D, man. As I always said this time, it's Uncle D. And I am out.
Dennis Berlin Podcast. Hit the like button, subscribe.
Mm-hmm.